Um, tonight, for our 6:30 info session, we have Anna and Patrice from DC Smart Street Lighting joining us to kind of give us a presentation about the plans for the revamping of our streetlights. If you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A. There will be time kind of at the end of the presentation to ask anyone questions. And then again, this is our just info session before the official start of our meeting at 7 p.m. But if you want to go ahead and take it away, Anna and Patrice, thank you again for joining us.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. I want to just first of all say thank you for allowing us to come before you to do this presentation and share an update with you about the DC Smart Street Lighting Project, which is creating a brighter and better connected DC. My name is Patrice Brooks, and I'm supporting this project with the outreach and engagement efforts, and going to be sharing an update with you about this project this evening. My colleague Anna is also on, and she'll be able to answer questions about if you have any questions about the presentation. So this project is bringing a lot of community benefits. It is modernizing over 72,000 streetlights. They'll be converting streetlights to LED technology, which is going to be very good for the community. Also adding remote monitoring and control capabilities, and also increasing the sustainability effort for the district. These street lights will help reduce energy consumption by more than 50% and also eliminate 38,000 tons of greenhouse gases emissions each year. The project timeline is here displayed on the screen. As you can see, project start and preparatory works took place in May of 2022. And as we go on down through the timeline, we can see that the rehabilitation work has already started and is underway, going into Q2, which starts in 2023 and until May 2024, which will be the conversion work. And then the asset management work, which takes place from 2022 until May of 2037. So this project is taking place in several phases. The preparatory phase, which includes detailed design and procurement and mobilization work, and then also some rehabilitation work. So that work consists of updating the foundation and the poles and the arms of the streetlights to good condition. The conversion work, which also basically means light installation, will take place in the group of wards and split into ANC bundles. Each ANC is split into several bundles, which 5 bundles per ANC. So this work within a bundle will take no more than 14 days. The asset management phase is basically the streetlight maintenance, full asset management service beginning Q 2023, and basically they'll respond to 311 calls and service requests under the DDOT Streetlight Division. And this covers both older and existing streetlight issues, as well as the new lights that's being installed. By May 2024, all LEDs are set to be installed, and asset management, again, as I noted before in the timeline, will continue until May 2037. Part of this project and calls for outreach and engagement and a notification process, which is something like what I'm doing here today, meeting with you all and sharing an update with you about this project. So the timeline is shared for our outreach and engagement notification process. 45 days prior to the start of work, we'll notify the ANCs via email and mail about any work that's going to be taking place. 7 days prior to the start of work, our outreach team will be out doing door-to-door and letting folks know about the work that's taking place, and also advising about no parking. 72 hours before the start of work, we'll also place emergency no parking signs. So again, if you want to stay connected, you can scan this QR code to be directed to the Streetlights website, and that is streetlights.dc.gov. And I can say it again, it's streetlights.dc.gov. And that is how you can connect with us all about the project. We also have some information here for if you would like to send an email, you can email info@dcsmartstreetlights.com. And that concludes our presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
It was very quick. Commissioners, if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Patrice, would you mind taking this off the screen so then we can see? And then also at the same time, could you drop kind of the information into the chat, and then we can make sure that commissioners and attendees get the information so we can connect folks over.
Yes, I'll put the information in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Commissioner Kinsick.
Yes, great presentation, very short and sweet, love it. The main reason we're doing this is for what? Safety, better lighting, and who has looked into the lighting in terms of the Kelvin? Because I've found in the 7 years I've been in DC, people are very sensitive with lighting in general. So just wondering like how we were able to determine this and that it's going to be acceptable to all.
I can answer this question. So the project, as I understand, was initiated by DDOT, one for safety. LEDs provide better illumination in general and more consistent for the drivers and pedestrians as well. But in terms of road illumination, the LED is more consistent. It provides more buffer against the uplight, which is very intrusive for birds and animals. So we're going to decrease the night sky pollution. And 3, it's the emissions, right? So we're targeting 50% less energy consumption, which triggers into less energy, which is great for the environment, obviously, and will provide some savings to DDOT as well.
And just to follow up then, the savings, how long of time would that take? I mean, how long to the investment? I know doing a lot of retrofitting myself through the years, sometimes it takes 5 to 10 years to even catch up to what you're spending on these LED lights. So where are we going to break even? So
what I understand is the finances were scheduled in a manner where for the savings, so the payments will be done to the developer according to the savings realized. So the savings, the monitoring will be able to measure the consumption at each point. And according to that consumption, they will then compare to the previous consumption. And depending on the savings, they'll issue the payments to the developer. Oh, and then the Kelvin, right? Addressing your question regarding the Kelvin, that was established by the DDOT. So they did a pre-design and
down like on the meeting, bro.
They submitted all the.
It ain't really a priority for me, but I'm
gonna. Hey, Gerard, can you go off?
I'm gonna do that.
Gerard,
I'm trying to catch up to this meeting.
Cedric, can you mute
y'all U-turn? I got y'all.
Thanks.
So the Kelvins were pre-established at the bid process, and my understanding is the DDOT they aim not to change the general look of the lights, so you're not going to get that really white bright light that you will get in a hospital, for example. And in general, they try to maintain the statics. So if it's a light soft yellow, that's what we're aiming for. So we're going to try to keep the statics within the district.
Commissioner Kinsick, I think I was just searching for an article about this because I think we talked about it maybe a couple of years ago, but I'll send it to you. I think it does mention the Kelvin. I think there was a commission that was set up that they researched like the exact like Kelvin units. So I'll send it to you, and I can send it to attendees as well. Commissioner Lakatos.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I had two quick questions. Does any component of this involve the installation of new streetlights? Because I've had some specific requests from constituents about some sort of like dark spots in blocks where it's like just gets very dark at night and feels very uncomfortable to walk. And I've submitted those requests through 311 to DDOT, but I don't know if there's part of the P3 is also, you know, looking for spots. Maybe people have requested lights in the past. And my second question is, my understanding that these were sort of like smart street lights that you could control remotely. To what extent, if, let's say, for example, one of the street lights is very bright and going into someone's window, can they just request it and then you go on the computer or whatever the system is and it just like lowers it? Because my understanding was that was the way it was proposed. But then I spoke to someone this weekend at the state fair who is very interested in light, and they told me that's not what's the current situation. So I'm asking you.
Mm-hmm. So addressing your first question, so the team is structured into two. I work with the design and construction, which is the contractor converting all the lights. And then for the maintenance, it's a different contractor named Equans. So they will be maintaining the network within, you know, the next 15 years. They do, when we bid this package, I know Equans had to budget for the installation of new lights, and they had, I'm going to say a number like 50 or 100 per year. So it wasn't a lot, but it was a considerable number. And so they had to budget for that. And I think the DDOT will then, through the 311 calls, identify the areas that need new lights. Either it's a new development or it's an area where there's already street lights, but you know, there are dark spots, as you mentioned. And then the DDOT will direct Equans to where they want this new expansion to occur. And then your second question regarding the remote controls. Yes, so when we designed our proposal, we, with our experts, determined the minimum amount of lighting we thought would be appropriate following the AASHTO for road class lighting. And the AASHTO determines what a minimum illumination is. So obviously we cannot go below that standard because it becomes not safe for the drivers and the pedestrians, but we do have a leeway staying above the AASHTO standards. We do have a leeway to increase or decrease the illumination. And that will be directed by the DDOT. So if you know, a resident calls and they think it's way too bright, we do have the ability to go into the software and lower the amount of light at that one point. Again, as long as it doesn't become unsafe for the drivers following the established guidelines.
Thank you for that. And one small follow-up. My understanding is the LEDs are directional, so you can sort of adjust them based on the direction. Something that you can do remotely, and I'm asking this because the whole area may not have gotten them, but that block of Florida Avenue that's in my district has gotten them, and the directional, they're 360, the same brightness. So they go right into people's apartments. So that's been a challenge. But so directionally, they're able to be adjusted as well. So like one side could be a little bit dimmer. It's not facing the road. The road is still getting the AASHTO standard. Is that possible?
No. So the patterns of illumination were picked pre-manufacturing. So to eliminate the lighting only on one side, we will have to install shields, which is possible. We know there are a lot of areas that have apartment buildings and the light is right at the window level, and per request, we will be installing those shields. But the residents do have to call and let us know.
And do you know what the process is for that? Is that a 311 request, or is that directly to the smart street lighting team?
That is a 311 request.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioners, are there any other questions? I have a few questions. So will the service level agreements with these new lights kind of improve? Right now for like a repair request, it's about 7 days. Are you all envisioning that this might be lowered to 5 days? What does that kind of look like? Or is it staying the same if someone sees like a street light out?
So in theory, and again, we're not the maintenance contractor, but in theory, the response will be faster because we do receive a red flag in the software as soon as a light is out. So the sensor will read no voltage and it will bring up an alert, which then the technician should, within a certain number of days, deploy a crew to go and inspect the light and then replace it. The crews have a number of days to respond to that. I want to say it's 72 hours to respond to a light out. But in theory, the whole system should make this process easier.
Yeah, I would hope it's faster and easier. I think, when different incidents happen, streetlights are a really big component to help prevent different crimes and violence and things. So in that article that I shared, and I realized it was published in January of 2022, so I know maybe things might have changed, but are there still plans to install, I think it says like 239 Wi-Fi access points to these too?
Good question. So that was included initially. And you might want to follow up with the DDOT on that because we were told to hold on that scope just because they didn't have the proper agreements in between Verizon. Some of the poles are owned by Pepco and Verizon. And a lot of those Wi-Fi equipment were scheduled to be installed on Verizon and Pepco poles. And when it came time to execute those, the agreement we had to install, concerns were raised by the pole owners, and then that part of the project was put on pause.
Okay. Yeah.
And we don't have like an update on the status of the negotiations that will be in between DDOT and the pole owners.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll definitely follow up to learn a little bit more about that. And then if someone were to go to, and sorry if I missed this, but if someone were to go to streetlightsdc.gov, can they also track kind of the progress of when this might be changing in their neighborhood or ANC?
Yes, they should be able to have a 30-day look ahead.
Okay. Okay, great. Commissioners, are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any questions in the chat from anyone. If there are, please add them to the chat, or if you would like to come off of mute, you can raise your little hand and we can take you off of mute. I'll give it a couple seconds. Oh. Okay, Cedric, can you go ahead and take Thomas Cohen off of mute? Mr. Thomas Cohen, you can take yourself off of mute.
Yes. I'm here.
We can hear you.
I don't have anything to say at this point. I'm just.
Oh, we noticed your hand raised, so that's why we took you off of mute. If you had any questions for DC smart street lighting.
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, Anna and Patrice, thank you so much for joining us. If you can go ahead and put your information or the best contact information into the chat. I see kind of the emails. Thank you again for joining us. This was really helpful. I'm excited to see kind of the progress of this and how kind of it helps expedite different things. But yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you all letting us join you this evening.
And we have about 6 minutes before the official start of our meeting, but what we can go ahead and do, since we have Mr. Gerard Allen on, if you want to give any updates, it seems like you're on the go. So maybe we can, if you have any kind of announcements, if not, we can also wait.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
It's been a long day. Bear with me a bit. I have updates for everyone. Happy to see one beat to this evening. I'm gonna start with Mayor Bowser's National Maternal Infant Health Summit. That'll be kicking off September 19th. Mayor Bowser launched the annual National Maternal and Health Summit in 2018 as an opportunity to bring together elected officials, health experts, and community members to have a focused conversation regarding prenatal health and racial disparities in birth outcomes. If you need to find out more information about this, out to maternalhealthdc.com for more information there. I'll get to Hispanic Heritage Month. Also kicks off September 15th. Event details will start Friday, September 15th, 4 p.m. Lamont Plaza, 3258 Mount Pleasant Street. We'll be having an event there. They also have a full calendar of events that will come out Friday as well with updated announcements for that. I did want to also speak on the juvenile curfew enforcement pilot program. On September 1st, the district launched an enhanced juvenile curfew enhancement pilot to ensure that young people are safe and to protect and connect youth and families with critical support and services. How the pilot different than standard curfew enforcement? Typically, when MPD encounters a youth in violation of curfew, an officer brings the youth to an MPD district station where the officer remains with the youth until a parent or guardian is located. In that pilot enforcement focus areas, MPD is bringing the youth to DYRS, Department of Youth Recreation Services, and instead of district stations allow MPD officers to return to patrol during critical overnight hours, and DYRS is then able to connect with youth and families who may need services and support. DMPSJ has created a page on their website to share information about the curfew pilot, including data that residents can use if they have questions of note. In the first weekend of the program, only 4 youth were transferred to DYRS custody, and 3 youth were transferred during the second week of the program. Resources to share, dmpsj.dc.gov/page/curfew-curfew. I can give you this information. I'm just reading off my notes, but essentially the MPSJ will have a lot more information if constituents or ANC business owners want to read up on that pilot program. You could always reach out to me to get more insight on that. And I think that's about it. It's a long list of notes, but I think those are the important ones that I wanted to touch on. But you guys know how to reach me. I'm available at any time. I can give you any updates or insight that you may need on this.
Well, thank you for giving us your updates early. I know we typically have you go farther down our agenda, so Sorry for putting you on the spot, but I appreciate you giving those
Oh.
up.
All good. I'm right here having the longest day possible, but I'm trying to bear with me a bit. It's all good. Is there any questions for me? I can take those right now if possible.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Are there any question? Oh, Commissioner Handerhan.
Super quick, but Gerard, just a Ladroit issue that it probably sounds like a one-off, which wouldn't be totally appropriate to bring up here, but we continue to have a lot of problems with the lights in the park at Ladroit. It takes like a really long time to get them fixed, and then as soon as they do, another set go offline, and they're not that old. And so I mean, just and kind of stuff we're talking about before, like lights are related to public safety, and it does, if anything you could do to help would be really appreciative. I know DGS has got a lot on their plate, but we're having trouble getting support.
Okay, is it possible maybe a different redesign it when they going out? Are they going out by way of maybe people breaking them, or is it just like a system thing where the lights might die and then they don't come and rechange the lights, things of that nature?
They're all, new within the past 3 years. So,
Okay.
But it's a combination. There's been some vandalism. That's not the current problem.
Okay, I'll reach out. I got a meeting with DGS and a couple meetings tomorrow about
Thank you.
the process. I'll reach out. I'll make that a highlight tomorrow.
Thank you.
I'll get back to you when I get an update about that as well.
Commissioner Lactus, do you have a question?
It's another DGS issue, but I'll send you an email, Gerard. It's easier that way.
Okay. I do know that there's some I was on a walk with MPD last night, and just to note, I know that there's some tree pruning issues down there on, is that V? I believe that's V by the CVS. I'm trying to get with Urban Forestry to go down there and do kind of like Sweet Ward 1 with this trimming thing, but it seems to be some, I don't know. I'm still looking into that, but I have a lot of areas with the tree pruning. I know when it's getting dark over there in some of those spaces, you can't even see the light that changes sometimes. So I know that's at the top of my list in terms of 1B, but I just wanted to highlight that as MPD brought that to my attention last night.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for giving your announcements again a little bit earlier. And if you get a chance, can you go ahead and just repost your email address just in case anyone has any further questions, especially our community members in the audience, that they can reach out to you.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat right now.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Commissioner Jones, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Handerhan,
Present.
Commissioner Holohan,
Present.
Commissioner Sycamore. Commissioner Sycamore noted he would be attending a little bit late. Commissioner Lakatos.
Present.
Commissioner Kensick.
Present.
Commissioner Fields. Commissioner Fields also noted she would be attending a little bit late. Commissioner Harris.
Present.
And Commissioner Jones present. Madam Chair, with 6 out of 8 commissioners present, we have a quorum.
Okay, commissioners, we have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, motion passes. Thank you. We also have a consent agenda, which is approving the draft meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was in July. It's been some time, and I forgot to reiterate this, but this is our September meeting. Normally, we do have this at the first Thursday, but we did want to accommodate the community since last Thursday fell during Labor Day kind of week. So thank you again for everyone joining us tonight. I realize that it's a bit confusing, so I appreciate everyone's time, and commissioners, you too as well. We also, in the consent agenda, we have a comment time for commissioners and community members at 2 minutes per comment and 1 comment per speaker per topic. I know that we are talking about a rather lengthy issue with the Ninth Street moratorium tonight. So we will be very firm in that 2-minute time length. If you have other comments that you would like to make, you can always email us and we will put our emails in the chat. But I just want to remind commissioners and community members, we will be sticking to that 2-minute time length. So then we aren't here all night. But those are the 2 matters on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Reports and action items. Commissioner Lakatos for financial reports.
Bear with me one moment. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see my browser screen here? So before us today, we have the, this should say FY 2024, but this would be the fiscal year 2024 budget. So for those of you who are not familiar, the district government operates on the federal fiscal calendar. So the beginning of the federal fiscal year is the 1st of October. So we have to pass a budget if we want to spend any money after that. So this is the meeting when we would pass the budget. So based off of our allotment, the money we have saved and the money we've spent, I'm going to read out sort of line by line and explain where most of this is pretty much identical to our last budget. We did not spend all our money. We spent far less than it. And I'm going to sort of give some context on each point to where it has changed. So for the total funds available, we project is going to be $174,952. For personnel, we've allotted $32,000. The amount for administrative consultant is higher because part of the amount we are allotting is back pay for Cedric, because due to some issues with getting an employer identification number and setting up payroll operations, Cedric hasn't been paid for the periods of work that he's completed in fiscal year 2023. Thankfully, today our payroll system was approved. So at the beginning of the next fiscal year, which is the October 1st, Cedric will start being paid. So this is to incorporate the actual amount of back pay along with the budgeted.
I'm so sorry, Commissioner Lakatos, would you be able to zoom in a little bit? I'm having trouble seeing it. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I forget that my screen. Yes, so that would be this amount. We also have a $5,200 budgeted for an intern, which we don't have. But if we do have an intern, we are able to then support that cost. We have $4,850 for communications, which includes all our web, Zoom, Squarespace, mailing, as well as commission branded materials, so business cards, other commission branded materials, $2,000 for office supplies and equipment, which can also include equipment that we use for our hybrid meetings. We have $2,600 for purchase of service. So this includes payroll services that we're going to be using. It also includes $1,600 for a monthly meeting venue if we need it. So that is if we have to pay for a monthly meeting venue. An allotment for bank charges, which we do end up needing. And then $9,050, 50 of which is for the security fund, which we have to pay. We'll be paying at the beginning of the the calendar year, and then $9,000 for sponsorships. As with last year, we do not need, or we likely will not spend all of this money, but this gives us flexibility in order to make those expenditures where we need to. Sponsorships will still follow the same process. Someone will apply, they will come before the ANC, we will vote on them and review them. The other ones, so payroll, paying the Zoom bill, paying the website bill, those are things that authorizes myself with the co-signatory of one other member of the executive committee to then make those payments without having to come and have a full ANC order specifically to them. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, Commissioner Kensing.
Yeah, great presentation. One of the things I had learned and really remembered starting off as a commissioner was I was told that we really should be spending down on these accounts, that keeping money in the bank is actually going to hurt the longevity of 1B, because if we're spending less, like I think this year we got like $3,000 or something. The more we keep in the bank and less we're spending for the community, I'm just not getting it. So like, why are we holding this much money left in the bank and carrying over? I'm just not really understanding why that is.
Part of the context, I think Commissioner Jones was maybe going to add something as well, but I'll start off. We had a lot of, before the commission started, we had a lot of money saved from past commissions, and sort of I wasn't on those commissions, so I can't speak to their, why they're more like fiscally conservative about how much they were spending. We still did spend a lot this fiscal year. We spent $30,000 on a lawyer. We spent money on sponsorships. We spent money on equipment and supplies. But sort of, if we're going to spend down this money and match, or sort of come close to matching what the allotment that we receive each year, which I believe is, yes, it's scheduled to be around $24,000. It will take several years for us to get more to a state of finances that is closer to what other commissions are. So we have a lot of money because we have it from the past, but we're trying to spend it in the community and on things that are helpful for the community, which include sponsorships and lawyers and events. But the reality is, if we spend it too fast, it's likely to trigger an audit. So we're spending a lot, but not too much. And I say audit just because the DC auditor does take on these ones at times. I hope that answered a little bit of your question. And Commissioner,
it did. Just a second part I would say is I would really love to see 1B give back to the community and do like some kind of street fair or something. I think that would be nice to get all of our unities together. Especially with everything that's going on in the city, it just get the children, the parents, get something together. And I know that I believe Commissioner Thomas, she had something on W Street over here, which was a really good turnout. The people really showed up. I don't think it cost that much money. So I would love to see us do something like that, to give back to the community and get us together, especially in a time of need when this city has gotten a little bit chaotic. And I shouldn't be saying a little bit, it's gotten chaotic.
So I think that's a good idea. We do have to make sure that we're working in the bounds of what we can spend our money on. So we just probably need to talk about that further. Commissioner Jones.
One moment, I'm getting the timer going for myself. There we go. Yeah, Commissioner Kinsick, I fully agree with your sentiment about trying to spend down this amount of money that we have available. That's why I took the lead pen on this to give Commissioner Lakatos a little bit of a break while he was dealing with other urgent things. That's why the budget that he and I are proposing proposes spending twice as much as we intend to take in this year. A significant chunk of that is reserved for sponsorships. Nearly 20% of the budget is reserved for sponsorships. The challenge, of course, is identifying good opportunities for sponsorships. I know that that's an interest of yours. But if we can do that early, and actually on that note, there are, I believe, 3 sponsorship agreements potentially on the agenda tonight that will help us spend down this excess. So I agree entirely with the sentiment. We can all work together to do exactly what you're describing within the bounds of that Chair Harris has pointed out. There are some pretty severe limits. But I know that you're active as well, Commissioner Kensick, on the Public Safety and Community Engagement Committee, and that would be a great opportunity for planning events like you're describing and identifying, ideally as well in advance as possible, other opportunities for us to sponsor community events. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. And I will also, you reminded me of something I should have led with, which is to thank Commissioner Jones for helping me assemble this budget, because I did. It was it's a challenge. The finances are a challenge in time wise. So thank you. But if anyone else has any questions before I make a motion?
Let's go ahead and take this off the screen, and we will share this. We will hopefully have this on the website. So once we vote on it, then it'll be up and community members can view it. Commissioner Handerhan.
I just thought it might make sense to use this as an opportunity to explain what a sponsorship is and how to apply for it, just because there's this is a focus area, and I think the commissioners we should all be advertising to our lists, and we should be encouraging organizations, but it's just going to be the people who are on calls like this. So I don't know, Commissioner Fields, I saw you were able to join. Maybe you could take that, or whoever makes the most sense.
How about do that when we talk about the sponsorships, since that'll be a little bit more relevant there as we kind of go through, and then maybe there's like the first hand look of that, if that's okay, Commissioner Fields, and if you think that works, Commissioner Handerhan.
Yep, I'm not with that.
So do we have
from a budget perspective, like 20% on sponsorships would be like so much bigger than we've done in the past. So I think it's like that's really the point I want to make. It's like a great opportunity for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think folks will see too that we have increased kind of our sponsorship levels of, with the sponsorships that are up, that we've kind of increased the amounts. In the past, we've kind of kept to the 500 range, but because we have some more money, and granted there are limitations, like we can't spend all of it. We kind of have to have this like Goldilocks just right scenario to avoid an audit. So community members will see that, and then we can talk through the process of how someone can apply, and anyone can absolutely reach out to us as well too, and we can help you through that process.
Could we possibly put maybe something on our website, or a link, a simple link for some individuals, so they go on there, just say go to 1B and you'll see an area, and this might help streamline, because some of the people just don't understand it, and I think that would help a lot.
Absolutely. Commissioner Fields did create a Microsoft form, so we can put that up there for people to fill out as well too. But let's go ahead and move forward with this. Do we have a motion to approve the FY24 budget? Commissioner Jones.
I move that the commission adopt the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget and attached budget notes as described in the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, and we will publish those items as well, and we will absolutely post the link. Thank you for flagging that, Commissioner Kinsick. Moving on to transportation, back to Commissioner Lakatos.
Happy to get it all done at the start. One moment. All right, and let me zoom in on this so we can all see it. All good and well. So the Transportation Committee considered two resolutions at our July meeting. The first resolution is the one you see before you, which requests that DDOT, the District Department of Transportation, expand its residential disability permit parking program for residents of multifamily dwellings. So for those of you not familiar, the RDPP is a very if you've ever seen these parking signs that have a sort of an ADA symbol on them and a specific number, if someone lives in a single family home, they're sort of like mobility challenged, and they're able to request the specific permit. It's a very strenuous process from what I understand, but it's restricted to individuals who live in single family homes. And so one of the committee members raised the problem and suggested that it would be helpful if we requested that it be expanded to multifamily dwellings, because not all multifamily dwellings have off-street parking, especially a lot of the older multifamily dwellings, and individuals who are mobility challenged, and especially individuals, it takes a lot of work to get this permit. Those people should be able to have a priority access to on-street parking because they need it to live their lives. So this is the resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has, and members of the public, and commissioners. Sorry.
Just thank you, Commissioner Lactose. That's great, because I've struggled with this for a couple of different of my constituents, and it's a very long, drawn-out process, and just seems like you get everything in a row, and then right at the end, there's something else. So it's a real pain. So I appreciate you doing this. It looks good. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any further questions?
Commissioner Jones has his hand raised.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. Commissioner Lakatos and whoever else on the Transportation Committee was working on this, thank you very much. This is important for a couple of reasons. As you're aware, there's a number of services that people living in DC who live in single family homes and small apartments benefit from that people living in multifamily homes of 4 units or more are not eligible for. This includes bulk trash pickup. And I didn't even think about this eligibility for a DC service that people can be denied simply because of the type of home that they're living in. I mean, this is important not just from an equity point of view, but also most of us live in single member districts where people in dense housing make up, if not a sizable minority, an outright majority of us and our neighbors. So yeah, this is something that 1B in particular is affected by, as well as people across the city. So thank you so much. I intend to vote for this.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Jones, and I share in that sentiment. I would like to make a motion that the ANC adopt the resolution as presented.
Let me ask and just make sure there's no community questions. Sorry, Commissioner Lakatos. We did not ask. I'm not seeing any. 2 more seconds. Okay. Do we have a motion was there one? Is there? Oh, there is. Cedric, can you take Jem Moore off of mute? Does he not have a, okay, I guess not. Okay. Do we have a motion to for this resolution?
I move that the ANC adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
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 All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. I'm seeing, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lakatos, I'm seeing Jim Moore consistent. Okay. Jim Moore, you can go ahead and take yourself off of mute if you have an additional comment you would like to make. Can you maybe speak closer to your microphone? I think you might be speaking. I can't hear you though.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's still a little soft, but go ahead.
Soft. Okay. I will try to project better.
Thank you.
What will be the parking impact if we do this? I mean, in other words, we already don't have parking now. I live on T Street. So what happens if we do this? What will be the impact to parking spaces?
I can provide some context. The program is subjective, and so it's spot by spot. It takes a lot. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of sort of like holes you have to go through at DDOT. So if someone gets a spot, it's one spot on the street that's just reserved for that vehicle and that permitted vehicle, and so it would just be one spot. On T Street right now, most of the buildings are row homes and single family homes, so they already qualify for this program. So the impact for this specific resolution would likely be less. It would be more impactful, hypothetically, if someone were to get said permit in more dense multifamily areas of 1B. I hope that can provide some insight. And also, DDOT doesn't necessarily have to do what we're requesting. We're just asking them to look at it.
Okay, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I did. I said thank you, but I guess.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry for
Okay,
that.
I was too soft. I apologize.
No, you're fine. That was on me. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Commissioner Kinsick, please make this quick.
Yeah, this is quick. I want to be quick for the officers that are on the line as well, the commander and lieutenant. We have a lot of safety issues going on in the city, and they're sitting here talking, listening to us. So can we let them, like we did the mayor Mocher?
I'm going to I allowed Gerard to go because we had extra time. So Commissioner Lakatos, please finish your updates and we will move forward. Commissioner Kinsick, please put your hand down, and then if you have further questions, we can get to those.
I'll make it very quick. We have one other resolution here we go. This resolution is responding to the DDOT's, the District Department of Transportation's Traffic Safety Input 2.0 process. For those of you familiar, TSIs, as they are more commonly known, are requests put in through 3101 that for specific traffic calming measures. So think a speed table, a raised crosswalk, but unfortunately, DDOT changed the program and they made it a bit more complex. And if we want to request specific measures, sort of, for example, like I requested a speed bump in my request, but DDOT ignored it when I filed it, and they ended up just putting up a sign, which really hasn't done anything. But what I went and did, and in collaboration with the committee members, is identified all the TSIs within ANC 1B that specifically mention dangerous traffic speeds. I identified those and I listed them in the appendix. So there are ones that are currently being considered, and then there are ones they're investigating at the moment. So reviewing for whether they will include sort of these measures, and ones they would consider in the future. And so what this resolution would do is lend the ANC's great weight that where their guidelines permit it, DDOT install traffic calming measures at the locations of these traffic safety inputs. If the street doesn't meet a specific classification, they won't do it. But this is sort of us setting the guideline that I think the committee and myself, and I think a lot of the commissioners share, which is that there's a lot of dangerous traffic speeds within ANC 1B, and we want to kind of just slow the cars down, especially around residential areas where people are walking around and where it's very dangerous. That is what this request does. This resolution does. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any community members with questions? Please raise your hand in the chat. I'm not seeing any commissioner questions. Unless I'm missing little hands, sorry. That's scrolling through. Okay, do we have a motion to adopt this resolution? Go ahead, just say the motion.
I move that ANC 1B approve the ANC 1B traffic safety input resolution as presented in the agenda package and its two appendices.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Before we move on, just our next meeting is October 11th at 7 p.m. You can register on the ANC website, anc1b.org. If anyone is interested in joining the Transportation Committee, my email is 1b04@anc.dc.gov.
Thank you. And just as I apologize, Commissioner Hollihan, just because we do have Commander Butler on and Lieutenant Monahan, if we can go ahead and just move their updates, and then we will get back to public safety and community engagement after we go through ABR. So does that work for everyone? Okay, great. We are moving through this. We're making good time. So thank you for everyone being patient. If we can go ahead and have an update from, I'm assuming, Commander, you're here for the Nightlife Task Force, and then Lieutenant Monahan, you're here for general and PD updates.
That's right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Sure. Those of you that remember back in June of 2022, The mayor stood up the nightlife task force. It originally was going to be a pilot program for 3 months to September 1st. It was too successful in the aspect that in that first couple months we reduced crime by almost 70% along the U Street corridor. As we continued, it turned into Halloween and first of the year, and finally the mayor just decided that it was going to be a year-round initiative, given the success we had. Now let's move forward to 2023. We have seen a much different clientele and a much different group of partygoers coming down to U Street, much different than what we saw last year. Last year, our success in part was because we came in and changed kind of the expectations of what we believe proper behavior was going to be along the U Street corridor. And it seemed to curb some of the nefarious activity. You guys remember we had a great reduction in the amount of ATVs that were down there. We cleared the corners. We weren't letting people hang out outside outside their cars on corners. That's all come back. And unfortunately, it's come back with a sense of violence that we didn't see last year. So although we don't see the huge groups of ATVs anymore, this year we've experienced large gatherings of juveniles, anyone between the ages of 13, 14 years of age, all the way up to early 20s. Probably midsummer, we started seeing groups coming out of the metro station right there at 12th and Vermont, people in packs of 10, 20, 30 people. That quickly rose to several hundred people gathering in what many would consider kind of a flash mob. It wasn't indicative to just 3D or, DC as a whole, right? Every major law enforcement city across the United States has seen these large gatherings, from Chicago to New York to Philly to LA. And many of these gatherings is exactly what happened here, right? Just, mass loitering, picking fights, breaking into cars, committing robberies, almost just a lawless mob type behavior. Many of these kids probably, that we did arrest during these encounters had no criminal records. And that just goes to show you that, the quote unquote mob mentality really is a real thing. When kids get together and, they see a group of people doing something and they think it's acceptable, they tend to join in that type of activity, where by themselves, they probably wouldn't. Most of the young adults or juveniles that we were arresting during these large flash mob type gatherings were not from 3D. They were from areas as far away as Upper Marlboro, Maryland, Baltimore City, Montgomery County, you name it. They were coming in through the metro systems and some by car, most likely organized via social media. You guys remember when, Instagram and Facebook Live, started, we were having some success with law enforcement being able to interdict these type of incidents by predicately monitoring social media. Unfortunately, as time goes on, people who want to do bad stuff learn from their mistakes, and they get caught once or twice like that, right? And then they realize that they need to talk in closed chat rooms. The police cannot monitor closed conversations in, the social media community. We can only monitor open source. So most of this is all going what we call dark, meaning behind the scenes where we can't monitor. We still get tips and information from parents who hear stuff from their kids, but usually it's too little too late by that time. Most of the large gatherings have been along the U Street corridor around Vermont. However, once we started arresting people and addressing it with enforcement, they started moving up to Banneker Field, just because it's a large swath of area that they could gather in. It's a meeting place. Well, that was all fine and dandy until they decided to go up and start fighting Howard students and stomp and rob a Howard University freshman his first week on campus. So, as you can imagine, I fielded probably about 250 phone calls from various parents in about a 24-hour period after that. Although, yes, Howard University campus falls within the 3rd District and MPD's purview, they have their own police department. They have SPOs that work their buildings and their properties. We've had to have a very pointed conversation with Howard University over the last couple of weeks, probably the last 2 months for that matter, about stepping up their game, because we cannot protect their students on campus as they should. I mean, we just don't have the resources to do that among everything else that we have to do. So what you have seen if you've been up to Banneker Field after dark is we've turned up the lights. We've had DPR turn all the lights on Banneker Field until about 4 or 5 in the morning to keep it bright because, you know, through environmental design, it's not fun to hang out under bright lights. We staged some police wagons and had DPR post signs that the park was closed after dark. So the first time they came back, we started making arrests for unlawful entry into the park, and that seemed to completely shut down and stop the occurrences of large gatherings coming back. We still get them. They're in packs of 20, 30 kids, and mostly it's the young juveniles now. It's not the large group that we've seen before. However, just a little bit of intelligence. We still hear rumblings of gatherings. Like this weekend, we have the 8th Street Festival. So although our security footprint for the 8th Street Festival, like any other, is going to be very large and robust. We do worry about those type of festivals being an attraction for these groups that want to come down and cause kind of disruption. So I just say anytime we have, a large festival, a large bar crawl, not necessarily a bar crawl on U Street, but large festivals, that's going to be something that we're really going to be focused on. So as part of the Nightlife Task Force, currently we stand up every Friday, Saturday, and on Sundays during holiday weeks. We continue to do so. The government agencies that have partnered with us vary, and you guys know them, right? They vary everything from DPW to DDOT, DYRS to CSOSA. They've been out there with us now up until 4 in the morning, walking U Street and in the corridor. One of the good things about having the supervisory agencies, and we've had DYRS, CSOSA, and even most recently, Maryland Probation and Parole, is they can set up geofences around the perimeter of U Street, or pretty much wherever we want, right? A couple blocks in each direction. And they can live monitor anybody they have on GPS supervision that might be down there, which means in every weekend they find a couple, right? They reach out to them, they call them, they say, hey, meet us at 9th and U Street, and they have a check-in. And it's nothing bad. It's just a hey, your own supervised release for X, Y, and Z, and you're down here in an area that could lead to trouble. So just know that we're out here watching. I say that because of all the arrests we made down on U Street for guns and fights, very rarely is it ever somebody that's on supervised release at the time of the arrest. So hopefully that's working. We did last summer. We were very heavy on the agencies such as DOB, fire marshal, and so forth on business checks. What we didn't want to happen was a counterproductivity where the businesses started feeling like they were being targeted or affected by our, not over enforcement, but our over presence. We've scaled back on that. We've been very meticulous and kind of intentional about how we utilize that now. Because let's be honest, right? Of all the businesses up and down the U Street corridor, there's probably only a handful that you could name that are problematic in any form or fashion, right? Most people are doing the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. So we respect that, and we do all we can to kind of mitigate that for them. The U Street Task Force is going nowhere. We will continue this effort, until somebody way above my pay grade says otherwise. And honestly, because things have changed and the feeling of how things are operating down there, I don't see any future of it going anywhere. So that's a good thing. That's an asset for us. Now, aside from the U Street Task Force, the Nightlife Task Force, Lieutenant Monahan is going to talk about a robbery suppression initiative that we stood up about 8 weeks ago. We had seen in the month of July a huge spike across our city in carjackings and armed robberies, about 85% of which were all juvenile offenders, 4 to 5 kids in a car, masks on, riding around, literally doing multiple jump out robberies over and over and over throughout the city. And they know no boundaries, right? So they would hit 4, 5, 6 districts over a several hour period. And in many of these times, we were interrupting robberies as they were happening. But because the Metropolitan Police Department is not going to chase a motor vehicle for a robbery, these kids are acting almost with impunity, right? So they would literally look right at us, they're all wearing ski masks, and jump back in the car and take off. The best thing that can happen for us is we get the helicopter up above them. We monitor them until they go park somewhere, and then the helicopter can lead ground units into wherever they may be hiding or into a home. But that's far and few between, right? Most of them make good their escapes. In the month of July, just the 3rd district alone, we had 101 robberies. 101 robberies in a month. The prior year in 2022, that same month, we had 35. Right. So that was not just 3D, although we took a brunt of those robberies across the city. We were seeing double digit, 50, 60, 80% increases in these type of crimes. So the agency stood up this robbery suppression initiative, and we targeted at first the 1st district, the 8th Street corridor, Chinatown, and the 3rd district U Street corridor. And what we did is we convinced the chief of police to pull assets from other parts of the city. So essentially, each patrol district to support this initiative would pull together 5 officers and a sergeant and send them to a centralized location downtown to have like around 7, 8 o'clock at night to meet up with an incident commander, which was somebody of the rank of a commander or inspector. And they would be supported by a couple, 2 lieutenants, a couple sergeants, and they would deploy to the 1D, 8th Street corridor and the U Street corridor, and just with overwhelming presence, not be on U Street, because that's what our nightlife team does, but they would just surround like a 4 or 5 block radius around our U Street corridor where we were getting hit on the outskirts. And what we were seeing was not only, as Cato mentioned, 60% reductions in the first 2-3 weeks of robberies, but we had units that literally were standing in the street or on corners watching these Kias and Hyundais drive by with 4 guys in masks, look right at them, and they would take off, they would leave. And in hindsight, that ended up being a win for us, which is why we had reductions, because although we didn't stop the car, they knew that we knew that they were there, and they simply left. They went somewhere else. So that initiative, speaking to the chief today in Comstat, is going nowhere. We're going to keep that stood up because we have really good success with that right now. We're seeing currently, and I'm going to give you an exact number here. When we look at the last 30 to 60 day comparison, we have a 45% reduction in robberies overall throughout our entire city or entire district. That's significant, right? And again, we had a really bad June, a bad June, really bad July. We stood this up. Our August numbers started coming down. In September, we're looking really, really good right now. So, this time last year for this month, we had 39. We had 39 robberies. This year, we're sitting around 20 right now. And that's the whole district, right? Not just the U Street corridor. Our U Street corridor numbers have gone down even more significantly because we have a lot of concentrated efforts within that. Now, the one thing I do want to mention about the Nightlife Task Force, a lot of people on this call are here listening to, is what we did to extend down past the Westminster neighborhood. Westminster has been beat up, for a long, long time now when it comes to property crime and theft from autos and having to deal with these yahoos partying in their cars after 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. What I'll say is this: I wish I had enough cops to put one on every corner at nighttime to be able to keep you guys safe and quiet, so you can go to bed and enjoy some peace and quiet. The reality of that is, we all know, we just don't have those type of resources. So we have to be very selective and intentional about our deployment, especially late at night, when at any given time we could work 2, 3 shootings and a stabbing, which draws a lot of resources away. What we try to do is utilize our government partners and extend our road closures down 9th Street beyond Westminster to S Street.
Yeah.
What that has done for us is simply allowed us to extend that footprint, keep less people from coming onto Westminster, and allow us, MPD for that matter, to not necessarily worry about that 9th Street corridor now with all the traffic and the people walking about, but instead focus more on the criminal side of it and patrol the neighborhood. So I know, speaking to quite a few people in the Westminster neighborhood, they're appreciative of that. They also know that it's not a permanent solution, right? Because we can't do that forever. We've got to come up with some different solutions. One of those.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry, Commander. We do have some questions, and I know that is actually, and I would love to actually stop there, only because I know that there's a lot of questions, particularly around 9th Street.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of community members who I think are in the audience who live around there, who might have, points to raise, especially from the hearing today. So is it okay if I open up the audience to questions?
Yes, ma'am. Go for it.
Commissioners, do you have any questions as we kind of prepare to open it up? Okay, so I'm going to go in the order that we received them. Frank, let's go ahead and take Mr. Frank Chauvin off of mute, Cedric. And we're going to go ahead and start the timer as well too.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Frank, we got you.
Commander, I'd like some understanding, please, and I know you can help me through this. It's not illegal to have public sales on tables of wares and things of sorts. They're supposed to be done in locations, but it's been decriminalized, and there's no teeth to get rid of the problem that we knew was coming and we knew wasn't going to be adequately addressed when the law was approved. But 4 nights a week, my liquor stores on 9th Street, my friends down the street, my proprietors and the bars are in competition of illegal alcohol sales coming from tables outside the bars. And there's no teeth in the law. There's no teeth by the police. And I want to know where the teeth are to get us out of this situation that we all knew was coming. And it's here. And so I need some answers. I need to know how we get rid of these people selling illegal alcohol on tables, out of cars, on carts, and competing with the businesses. We knew this was coming, and I just want to know how to get rid of it. I need to know who to talk to. If you guys can't do anything, because I think you guys are hands off on this, and whose job is it to get rid of these people?
So Frank, you're right in the aspect that MPD is not enforcing or in the world of enforcing vending violations. However, sale of alcohol is a little different. ABCA still has the ability to fine and seize illegal alcohol being sold. ABCA is one of our partners that is out with us from day one, is out there every night. We simply just need to identify who and where they are, have the ABCA representative who was working that night come over and address it. That's all. So, I mean, I seized an entire cooler full of homemade juice boxes with alcohol in them, tequila juice boxes last weekend when I was out and about right next to Nellie's in the alley. So, I mean, we're not going to get them all, but we are addressing that when we see it. If you specifically see one in particular that's raising your interest, send me a text, dude. And you know I answer my phone 24/7, and I'll have ABCA go down and address it.
It just seems like we need a point person from ABCA to deal with this issue.
So ABCA has different investigators working every night. It's a gamut of who's working. Part of the nightlife task force is having an incident commander that can move the different pieces and be the point of contact for those folks. That person is a lieutenant or captain that works on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays on holiday weekends. However, that does rotate as well. So, Frank, I'm your guy.
Will do. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And I'll make sure.
And something to note, Frank, if you have issues with ABCA, you need to raise it with ABCA. You know, the commander is focused on MPD, and I'm sure has relationships with ABCA, but if it's an issue, you should absolutely raise it with the agency. And I know I heard you today kind of in the hearing.
I mean, ABCA has an on-call, it may very well be the person that's out on the street that night with us, so they can relay it to them as well.
Okay, great. Next we have Leola Smith. And I do see a question in the Q&A, and I believe that came after, so we will get.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question for the commander. You mentioned that we have the police here on 9th Street, like on the weekends, and you know that's not going to last forever. Well, in the last 3DCA meeting, you emphasized that we needed we was going to get the cameras and the.
I'm working on it. Yep.
You're working on it. It would be a great help for that camera to be mounted at 9th and Westminster. There's a street light there.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get our trees trimmed back so we could get clear pictures of these knuckleheads that's going around committing the crimes. Last Sunday, I was robbed. This is the second robbery in my family in a month. First, it was my grandson. Then I went in the store last Sunday. Coming out the store, I saw the guys going in my car. When I ran to the car, they pulled out a gun at me and told me to get back on the sidewalk, took my pocketbook and ran. This got to stop. From what I've been talking to my neighbors about, they were saying that the young people consider, she's a doctor, when they come in the hospital, they consider our neighborhood the hunting ground, that they actually come up, they're looking to hunt, to go in our cars and break our windows and have parties after the club. They have after parties after the club closed because of the clubs and the taverns in the 1900 block. This has got to stop. I've completely lost my business because my Airbnb has shut down completely because of the noise. One of my guests was robbed. We got to put an end to this, and I don't know who's going to take care of this problem.
So there's a lot to unpack right here. Okay, I'm going to try to break it down into 3 parts. One, you asked about cameras. Chief Smith ordered the immediate purchase of closed circuit camera television devices to place throughout the city. I believe we have an authorization for, I want to say 50. The first 22 cameras just arrived today from the vendor. Our Technical and Analytical Services Bureau that oversees the implementation of these is out this week doing site surveys where we told them we want them placed. We were all given three places that we were asked to provide cameras, or locations where we like cameras in priority. Our first was 9th and Westminster. So it will definitely be placed at a location where it has a pole that can access power, because it has to have a power source.
Yes.
And part of that will be ensuring that trees are trimmed through Department of Forestry so that it's not a waste of asset. So that's the first thing. Second, theft from autos across our city are, I mean, I can't even tell you the increase in the amount. I mean, it's just absurd. The amount of cars that get broken into in our city. And, if you asked me this 5 years ago, I would tell you most of the chances of you having your car broken into was some, a transient or a homeless guy walking by. Not anymore. They're organized groups of kids. Same ones that are out robbing people on a Friday, go around on a Saturday, and they'll break 10 car windows in a row in a block, jump in the car, steal whatever's in plain sight, and be back in their suspect car and out the block in a under 60 seconds. It's almost like a game to these guys. We made some arrests this past weekend because they were dumb enough to steal some phones and laptops out of a car that allowed us to track them. We tracked them all the way over to 37th place in 6D. And they were back over there within 20 minutes of the actual theft from auto here in DC in 3D. So a lot of moving parts when it comes to that. I can tell you, we put 2 bike cops down in your neighborhood, down in the Westminster neighborhood. Officer, I can't think of their names right now. Help me out, Kate. Who are your 2 bike cops?
McCourt and Burke.
There you go. I'm sorry. I'm tired. My brain's a little sloppy tonight. They've interrupted probably 3 dozen theft from autos in progress. But again, you yell out to somebody breaking into a car, they jump in their suspect vehicle and they're gone. Right? We can't chase cars for that. So we have done some disruption and interruption in that space, but it continues to be a problem. I mean, Westminster, us patrolling Westminster and some of the surrounding blocks, you know what that's done? That's only displaced it over to 12th Street and 13th Street. Right? I have a bunch of neighbors in 12th and 3rd Street, 12th and 13th Street now that are crying for help, because the same thing that was happening in Westminster is now happening on 13th Street, 12th, 13th, and 14th, literally a couple of blocks away. So I don't have an easy answer for that. I'll say when we do catch kids breaking into cars, they rarely ever get prosecuted or even papered, to be honest with you.
When are we going to start locking them up, though? Can we find somewhere to put them?
Man, we do arrest them, but what happens after that, that's a whole nother conversation for another day with somebody from the U.S. Attorney's Office, or more importantly, the Attorney General's Office, to speak to why they do or don't prosecute those cases. That's just the unfortunate fact. We have a couple. We have a couple. Miss Smith, we have a couple people that are package thieves, which probably drive you guys more nuts than anything. And we've arrested them since I've been there a year now, 40, 50 times, and they keep getting released over and over and over and over because time, money, and energy to prosecute a package theft apparently is not a high priority with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
But when they start killing them and shooting them like they did right in front of me a couple of weeks ago, then we have to do something.
You're right.
Miss Leola Smith, the unit, I'm so sorry that these incidents have happened to you. You know, I can't even imagine. And again, all I can convey is that I'm really sorry. If you have any other further comments, please, you know, state them now, and then we do need to move on to the other questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to pass along any information to make sure that, you know, you get your other questions or comments answered. But again, thank you for raising it, and I'm so sorry that that has happened to you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Lakatos, I saw your hand, and then Commissioner Jones.
I just was wondering what the other two locations for cameras were. If you might be able to share that.
So for permanent cameras, 7th and T Street. So it'll face into the 600 block of T Street where we're having, you know, some issues. And the other is likely going to be Euclid in Ontario, where we had a triple murder a couple months back. That is starting to see another an increase of people kind of hanging out where we had mitigated that years ago. And started back. You know, we got a couple people that just recently got out of jail, and unfortunately, people, you know, become recidivists and they go back to what they know. And you know that's an area where I don't want to see that uptick start again. So a camera there likely will be what we do. But placing those cameras there will also, if I place those 3 cameras in the 3 places I mentioned, that'll free up 2 mobile cameras on trailers that I can move around and deploy as needed in other locations.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up on something that Commander Butler was saying a little bit ago. I realize there are a lot of moving parts here, and I would advise people who are interested in learning about the interactions of the various types of public safety efforts that DC is working on, and DC and the US government are working on, to attend the 3rd District CAC meeting, which is held the last Thursday, I believe, of each month. Commander, you had recently people from the US Attorney's Office, which I thought was very helpful in explaining other parts of the process and helping explain other strengths and weaknesses of that process. So if you have concerns about what's happening after MPD has arrested suspects, that would be a really good opportunity to talk with people who are responsible for criminal justice beyond that point. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the community questions. Commissioners, if you have other questions, please raise your hand and we will attend to them in the order that they come in. We have one from Mandy. There seems to have been an uptick in shootings in the U Street corridor very late, around 4 to 5 a.m. Are these shootings linked? What is being done to try to prevent the shootings?
So that's a tough question because the motive behind a lot of these shootings we'll never know. A lot of the victims know their assailants because it starts off as a fight or, you know, some type of acquaintance dispute. And let's be honest, people don't like to give up their friends or people they know, or they think they'll go get their own retribution instead of coming to the police. Some of the uptick that you've seen recently is robbery related. This time, even last year, if somebody robbed you, likely they were going to take your property, even if it was a gunpoint, and leave. We have seen not a significant, but definitely a noticeable uptick in robberies that have led to discharge of firearms. Just this past weekend, in the 600 block or 700 block of T Street in the South Alley, we had a young man rob another young man of a moped. And what happened was our victim fought back. And he said he wasn't going to let him take his moped. And our suspect pulled out a gun and discharged a firearm. Didn't strike him, but then pistol whipped him with the gun. I'll say this, we had looked at some camera footage. Our patrol officer drove through about 90 seconds before it happened. These two guys knew each other because they walked into the alley together. If maybe they were going to smoke weed together, I don't know, right? But they walked into the alley together. You don't typically walk into an alleyway with somebody you don't know, right? At least I don't. And then this happened. So that was followed by about an hour later, a shooting at 12th and U Street where Uber Eats driver left his car running unattended, came out with his pizza to see his car drive away. What does he do? He flags down another Uber Eats driver and they chase after it. He gets some vigilante justice and catches up to it, gets out of the car and rips both the suspects in masks out of the car and takes control of his car. A third suspect gets out of a suspect stolen Hyundai Elantra and shoots him. Right? So, I get it. People are tired. They don't want to be victims. And some of these offenders are kids. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've looked at camera footage of kids robbing people. And I've thought in my own head, like, I wish these kids would try to rob me. I'd knock them right out of their socks, right? But these kids are all carrying guns. And then when I say kids, I mean 13, 14, 15. We've taken guns off of people that the Office of the Attorney General will tell us we can't prosecute them. They're too little. Take the gun, take them, hand them over to their parents. I mean, there's no criminal responsibility for some of these kids, right? Because they're too young. So what we have done as an agency to try to curb this is, I'm not a big fan of, chairperson knows, I'm not a big fan of letting people get away with nonsense, right? Like, there's some people that need to go to jail, but I'll be on the other spectrum. I'm not about, the lifestyle of trying to put children in jail, right? However, something's got to be done to hold them accountable, whether it be through mediation or diversion or something to get them out of that path. I don't know what that is, right? And to be honest with you, MPD does a lot of social work that we probably shouldn't be doing, but we're doing because we're trying to stop it at the front end. So when we arrest a juvenile, whether the case gets prosecuted or not, our Youth and Family Services Division immediately does daily check-ins with the family for a period of time. If the kid is charged, we do daily physical check-ins, not just call-ins with the family every single day. We do check-ins at the schools with the kids every single day. I mean, that's time consuming. It's a lot of work, but it at least lets these children know that, one, we care about them. Two, we're paying attention to them, right? And if they're on supervision and they're on the DYRS side, we get a lot of help. They monitor them to all in. If they're on the CSS side, Court Social Services, we rarely ever get any cooperation from that side of the house. At the end of the day, I know they're juveniles and there's a lot of privacy issues that surround that and stigma that comes along with us tracking juveniles. But when we see an uptick in juvenile crime, we're going to have to try to do something different, right, than what we're already doing. So I would say those two things: the uptick in juveniles with guns, and the robberies turning into shootings because of people fighting back, right? And I'm not one to want to lose my property, but I tell everybody on this call, same as I do in every other meeting: somebody robs you, give it to them. It's property. We can replace it, right? I know it feels bad and you might not want to, but it's not worth getting shot over. And these kids aren't thinking, but in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you're right. We do, I think, have differing things. And I think one point that we do agree upon is probably MPD should not be doing everything. Y'all are doing a lot. So that's a much larger discussion. I do want to cap in the questions from the community. If you have other questions, we will make sure to post the commander's information into the chat so you can reach out to him with those questions. And as Commissioner Jones highlighted, there is a 3D CIC meeting that is very helpful. And I believe the Chairwoman Karen Gall is on. I think I saw her in the attendee list. But I do want to end the questions after Andre, and we do need to move on. So the next three, I'm going to try to speed it up. But Thomas says they've seen several drug interactions on 9th and U. The density of liquor serving businesses is a problem as well. What used to be called loitering sorry, it seems like there's a couple questions in here. What is being done to eliminate drug trafficking, I guess, in the area?
Yeah,
That's probably a pretty big question.
Yeah,
So
I
if we
mean-
want to limit it
I get it.
as best as we
The
can.
the most basic answer is we make numerous drug arrests every single day. But you know, a physical arrest of a person takes several hours to process. It pulls an officer off the street. And if every officer went out there each shift and made a drug arrest, we wouldn't have anybody to answer 911 calls. So we've got to be intentional and purposeful about our enforcement. You know, we arrested a guy last night with almost, 100 grams of crack cocaine and a pistol, and had it presented to the U.S. Attorney's Office going to federal court because of the amount of drugs and guns. I mean, that's a pretty serious amount of drugs, right? So we are targeting drug traffickers. The small hand-to-hand stuff, I'll be honest with you, we went over to T Street and did a drug operation where we did what we call buy bust, where we have all undercover officers buy drugs, and then we, like the title states, we run in and we bust them and we arrest them for distribution of narcotics. Because it was all 1 or 2 zips of heroin, it was low-level drug trafficking, every one of the cases got dismissed by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So you got to look at, okay, is that, I get it, right? Is that bang for our buck, though, in our resources and our time, when we could go out there and look for the more, no pun intended, bigger fish, or folks that are, have the gun and the multiple grams of drugs, that are really affecting the community. So yes, I get it. It's unsightly. You don't want to see it in your community. And I'm not saying that, we won't make the arrest. It's just, we've got to be selective in our enforcement.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the next one, I think this one is probably quick. What is the issue with deploying more cameras? Is it money?
So it is. I mean, it's money. It's line item budget. I know that I've spoken to Councilwoman Pinto, Chairwoman Pinto, and Councilwoman Nadeau. They both support more cameras, but it's got to be in the budget for that, right? So I know, looking at the 2024 budget and beyond, they're looking to increase the funding for that type of technology. But even look at the ones we have. We're at a point now, we've had them for so many years. Think about your laptop. How many years can you use your laptop before it's obsolete? You got to get a new one, right? Same thing with technology, right? So we've got to not only buy more cameras, we've got to update and probably replace the majority of the ones that are in the city. So that's going to be a lot of money. I mean, those cameras, line item, off the top of my head, they're somewhere in around $12,000 to $15,000 a piece. So they're not cheap by any means. And so yes, that is something that we have to look at. But again, that happens through our Chief Financial Officer in the Mayor's office.
Yeah. Thank you. And then this one, I think, it's not that we're going to skip it. I think it's a very large question that I think touches upon MPD. It touches upon council, mayor, all of it. But how come Washington, D.C., being the city where the U.S. president is, the most powerful person in the world, is going through safety issues? It's unbelievable to me that there's not enough legal authority to mitigate all these issues. We are very few blocks from the White House, which I think we can all agree that, there is a safety kind of issue. It is top of mind for all of us. We are all changing kind of patterns. So I think, I'm not going to put you on the spot, Commander, because this is a very big question. So I think it's something that, we'll hear from Commander, we'll hear from other folks, we'll hear, if you all have the chance to attend 3D CAC meetings. I think, this is a broader question that's on all of our minds. There's also, thank you, Karen. There are community walks that 3D CAC host. And Karen, if you can add those to the chat, or there will be community announcements to announce when the next walks are, but I encourage folks to attend those. But this is something, I feel for folks who have gone through who have had the violence impact them, right? Have had them directly, or have had friends, lost loved ones, I truly empathize. But thank you so much, Commander, for joining us this evening. I know that we have a regular occurring agenda item with the Nightlife Task Force moving forward. So I don't know if it's going to be you next time or who else, but really appreciate you kind of going through things and giving us an update. Is there anything that community members can check, because I know that one community member, Mandy, I think brought up, shootings that have happened. Is there anything in terms of, cases being resolved or, updates to matters that community members can see, just, what's going on? Is it still the Google group?
So yeah, so our public information office pretty timely puts out press releases for all case closures relative to homicides and ADW shootings, robberies, and so forth. So, I know we all probably get a million emails a day, and we don't check most of them. But that's the department's way of providing information relative to closed cases. Now, you're only going to get the name of the suspect, where the offense happened, and some case numbers. But if you're tracking it and you see it, it is a way to follow it. I do recommend linking up with the community prosecutors in your respective districts. And for this matter, it's the 3rd district, because those folks do put out U.S. Attorney monthly updates about cases that they prosecute. Larger cases that may be in federal court, like I spoke about today, that may be helpful. But there is no one repository where you can go look up everything that happens in that one box, right? That may be something down the road that we can look into, but that's just a lot of data. And I don't know how we would even aggregate that.
Okay, well, thank you again for joining us. And if you can add your information, I'm sure you will get a lot of questions. So thank you also in advance for answering those questions.
And for the folks on the Westminster group that are on this call, I know you guys have been asking for your own meeting. I know this is not enough time to answer all your questions. So plan a night, pick a yard, the park, whatever, and just let me know when. Give me a couple dates, because the last week of this month I've got to go out of town to Chicago for work. But outside of that, I'll make time to come down and meet with you guys, give you some FaceTime.
Thank you, Commander. Lieutenant, do you have any updates?
Well, the commander pretty much stole my thunder and explained the robbery suppression initiative, which is what I was going to talk a little bit about. But real quick, so I don't take up everybody's time, I just want to let you know about the specific numbers for ANC 1B and PSA 305 as a result of that robbery suppression initiative. Prior to it beginning in the 30 days, we had 22 robberies. After the robbery suppression initiative began, we went down to 8. That's a 64% increase. And although that's 8 more robberies than I would like to see in the PSA, that's still very significant. And assaults with dangerous weapons, that's the shootings and the stabbings. We went from 11 before the robbery suppression initiative down to 2. And again, 2 more than I would like to see, but that's an 82% reduction. So finally some good news and seeing things trend in a much better way. And that's all the update I have for you.
And I just want to, Kate, thank you for jumping on this. Those of you that on this call, you don't know, Kate's actually in an executive leadership program last week and this week. So she's already worked 10 hours today, and she's still working on the call now. So thank you, Kate.
Yeah, we really appreciate you joining us and for all the other meetings that you've joined. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, Chairperson, do you need us anymore for the rest of the?
I do not. Thank you. And thank you so much for your time and allowing us to move you around the agenda.
And I'm going to drop my contact info in the chat before I leave.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, commissioners, and thank you, Commissioner Fields. We're going to actually move back to ABR, if that's okay, because that was next, right? I'm not losing my mind, right? Can someone come off of mute and say yes? As I
can't speak to losing your mind. That is what's next on the agenda.
Sure. Okay. So Commissioner Holohan, you can go ahead and give ABR updates.
Great. First thing off the list, we have a new license for Minya's Pizza. This is the old Sugar Shack Donuts location located on 1932 9th Street Northwest. Taylor's Class C restaurant. For those of you who are familiar with the old Sugar Shack location, there was a bar underneath. What we're told is that this bar will not be utilizing that space underneath and will just be using it for space. However, given the all the talk about the moratorium currently being sought and just wanted to start the conversation with these folks. We would like the support of ANC 1B to just start the process of a settlement agreement with these folks. We had a motion and it passed 5-1 on the grounds of peace, order, and quiet and all applicable grounds. As I said, we'd like the support of ANC 1B in that.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
Where is this location?
It's basically the corner of 9th and New. It's sort of like 2 locations down from Nellie's. It's the old Sugar Shack donuts place.
Got it. Yeah.
And are they, and so it's a CR, are they seeking any like entertainment endorsement or like any sort of, it's okay.
There's no entertainment endorsement. It should just be the first level where they're going to be serving drinks and having seats.
And then what are there any specifics around the issues with peace, order, and quiet?
It's essentially just trying to make sure we can get some kind of security agreement in place, or anything, because we don't have any type of security in the template, but we just like to start the conversation with them to see if we can get any kind of conversation around that.
Okay.
Do we have settlement agreements currently with those other bars in the local area right there? I know Nellie's recently, but the next couple, it goes down probably 4 or 5 hookah bars. And so are there settlement agreements for those as well? Or are we singling out this one?
Oh yeah, but basically nearly every single bar in this block has a settlement agreement.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
Make the motion for ANC 1B to approve ABR's ask for ANC 1B to approve the protest on the grounds of peace, order, and quiet and applicable grounds.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? That's a tie.
Madam Chair, by my vote count, that was 3 in favor, 0 against, 5 abstaining, which passes.
Not carry. Or no, motion passes. You are right, sorry.
What,
Motion
wait, 3, 4, or 5 abstain?
4 abstain.
My record shows 3 in favor, 0 against, and 5 abstentions.
4. I thought there were 4 abstentions.
Commissioner Sycamore also.
Oh, apologies. Sorry.
It is Commissioner Sycamore. This is just a request. If you could come on camera when we are voting and raise your hand, otherwise we're at risk for missing the raise hand button.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, motion passes though. Just as a reminder, and this is a good reminder for myself that I'm saying it out loud, is that abstentions are non-votes. So if it's still 5 votes, that's still, or 5 abstentions and 3 in favor, that still means that the motion passes. So that's just an FYI. Okay.
Okay, thank
Hang
you.
on.
Next one up is the main event. It's the 9th Street moratorium. What I'm going to do here is ask for Paul O'Neill to come join me in this room to answer questions about this motion and the moratorium itself. And then what we'll do is allow people from the audience to speak for 2 minutes only, as we've discussed in the first part of this call. One comment per person,
Yep.
2 minutes per person. I know we might have a lot of comments on this, and it's already 8:18 tonight, so we want to get this as fast as we can. Can we promote Paul?
Yes, Cedric, if you can go ahead and promote Paul. And Paul, you also have kind of 2 minutes And if you both could limit kind of responses to any of the questions, and if they are directed at different commissioners, if you can direct your responses also to 2 minutes. If you would like to make separate comments, those are 2 minutes. And I know that there are several attendees here from the community. If you can go ahead and start raising your hands, and we will get to them in the order that we received the hand raises. So
just to clarify, once we're done with the presentation and comments, I'll have Commissioner Lakatos share the resolution. Cool, Paul.
Oh, you're on mute.
I beg your pardon, novice mistake. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. I have prepared 2 minutes of testimony, anticipating that the moratorium and the context for the moratorium would have already been presented. I'm prepared to provide the outline of the petition, but if I assume everyone has read it and is familiar with it, I would save everyone time and just make my 2-minute remarks in support of the moratorium.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. Is everyone kind of aware of the petition and what's in there? If not, we can quickly kind of discuss that.
Yeah, I'd like a quick update on that. It'd be great.
Okay, if you can give 30 seconds on that, Paul, that would be helpful for Commissioner Kinsick.
Sure. The Westminster Neighborhood Association, also known as WNA, is requesting that the ANC approve a petition to establish a new moratorium zone in the 1900 block of 9th Street. The moratorium would be known as the North Shaw and 9th Street Neighborhood Moratorium Zone, and it would prohibit for 3 years the issuance of new liquor licenses in the 1900 block of 9th Street.
And then, so just specifics, this is for CT licenses, correct?
Let me just go back to the document for that. It's beyond CT licenses.
And entertainment and cover.
Yeah, maybe an easier way to look at it is that it excludes everything but restaurants, and it prohibits restaurants who request sorry, I'm forgetting the amendment that they ask for. Endorsements, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
So we welcome in new restaurants. We don't welcome new restaurants with endorsements. They would be excluded under the moratorium. And then liquor licenses that would include taverns, bars, off-premise retailers, etc. That's just me off the top of my head.
Thank you. And then just as a minor adjustment to your original statement about an ANC approving, so we do not approve a moratorium. We can simply support the recommendation for the approval for ABCA. Oh, sorry. I just want to make that distinction.
I accept that. Yes.
There's a lot of talk that ANCs approve liquor licenses. That is not our responsibility. We do not do that. That is ABCA's primarily, the ABCA board, not the agency. ABCA board's primary responsibility. And the ABCA board is the ultimate decision maker for the moratorium.
How about if I were to say that we requested the ANC supports a petition? Would that be more?
That is great. And we and Commissioner Holohan could have phrased that in the motion as well. But thank you. I just wanted to clarify that for any confused parties. So
yeah, amendments accepted and appreciated.
Thank you.
So if that's sufficient, I can just move on to keep things moving. I just did 2 minutes regarding the moratorium that I'd like to make. They're prepared, so I'll read them if I may.
Yes, great.
In 2 minutes, roll. I'm here to ask for the ANC support for the moratorium and to testify that North Shaw has an overconcentration and imbalance of liquor licenses in the proposed moratorium zone. And I'm also here to pose this question. What led us to this awful and dangerous mess that we are in as citizens, civil servants, law enforcement, and business owners? The answer, in short, it's a failure of governance and public policy that led us to this awful and dangerous mess. The negative externalities caused by the overconcentration of liquor licenses on the 1900 block of 9th Street and the area surrounding it are enormous. Lives lost, city resources deployed into overtime, all kinds of city agencies jumping through hoops and spending tax dollars by the fistful to address a problem that is, at its root, a failure of governance and public policy. The overconcentration of liquor licenses is crushing neighborhood safety and smothering a diverse commercial mix. When every other property on a block is a club or a bar, there's no space for varied commercial development. We want to ensure that there is room for new restaurants, new retail shops, art galleries, coffee shops, and more. We want to ensure that blocks like the 1900 block do not shut down at dawn and open up only late at night. This is why the WNA excluded new restaurant licenses from the moratorium. We need a diversity of commercial spaces. We need our ANC to advocate for this if we were ever to get back on the path of creating a thriving economic zone. One final point. The moratorium does nothing to address the problem that we have at present. That ship sailed when ABCA approved 23 liquor licenses for a single city block. 75% of the licenses are for bars and taverns. The moratorium only stops the problem of overconcentration from getting worse. Can anyone suggest that more bar patrons anywhere near here is a good idea? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, and we're gonna keep you on because I think you're kind of representing WNA. So if there's any questions that community members have or commissioners have, we can pass it to you or Commissioner Holohan. But let's go ahead and start with, and I'm not seeing any commissioner hands, but let's go ahead and start with Ms. Leola Smith. Cedric, if you can go ahead and take her off of mute. Oh, and Commissioner Kinzig, I'll come back to you after. Same with you, Commissioner Handerhan. There we go. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear us? We can hear you.
Okay. I want to know how this happened, who's responsible for, and how did the city allow the 23 liquor license 1 block from my home, which is in a residential RF1 zone. The Apple Board is asked to help. The ANC, I'm asking you guys to support our moratorium because of the crimes, because of the liquor license. The license are overconcentrated and deeply harm me personally, reduce peaceful enjoyment of my home and neighborhood, as well as have resulted in a physical assault on my family's safety. I've lived around this neighborhood for 43 years and I've never seen it that's this bad before. The liquor license are bringing too many people in our neighborhood, and it's damaging our community. And the people that's coming to our community are coming up here to rob the cars for the club goers because of the different amount of clubs that's located down the street. I'm asking you guys to really support. I know you can recommend moratorium, but can you support the moratorium for my neighborhood?
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Kinzig.
I just wanted to say today for the hearing, out of the 24 witnesses in the morning's ABCA hearing, only 3 registered oppositions. However, the oppositions raised was predominantly based on the opinion that it would not be it will not by itself reverse the current problems, end quote. However, we know that an enacted moratorium will stop the problem from getting worse. This has been demonstrated by the 23-year Adams Morgan moratorium success. I want to say that this is very tough. I'm always about public safety. I run on public safety. I will always run on public safety. I just get concerned always with being certain streets being targeted or unfairly targeted. I think Ward 6 just had an incident recently with this kind of thing. But I just want to make sure that people understand on the call that public safety is, as you can hear from constituents, and also if you were at or heard from today's meeting, I think that's something that all commissioners should be voting on, and I'm hoping that we don't see any abstentions. Thank you.
Just as a note, abstentions, I don't think that's fair of you, Commissioner Kinzik. Abstentions are okay. That's reasonable. That is the commissioner's right to abstain. It doesn't signify anything negative or positive. Commissioner Handerhan.
Thanks so much. I will admit, when I first heard about these plans, I was pretty skeptical. I think moratoriums feel like a really blunt instrument. I do know that they're not unprecedented. So, I think was always willing to listen. And I've come around and I'll be voting in support of the moratorium. I think that the immediate neighbors have little choice left. And I've been really impressed with the consensus they've built around this plan. It's not perfect. And I'm going to talk about two potential unintended consequences that I'd like us to just be aware of. But I think the fact that they have been able to get so much support for this speaks to the fact that no policy is perfect, but we have to change something, both for quality of life, but really public safety issues. And it is really a micro concentration issue that feels and is a lot different than other parts of the U Street corridor, even though that may not be clear if you're walking around at like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. The two unintended consequences I just want to make sure we're thinking of. The first is the impact of the blocks immediately outside of the moratorium zone. I don't necessarily support an extended zone. We are in a nightlife corridor. But I think we should think about and monitor the licenses that occur, for example, on the 600 block of Florida, which is not in the not affected by this, but could be the type of part of the corridor that has more licenses being requested there. And the second thing is, I don't think there's any way to avoid this, at least not without legislation, but the existing licenses become a lot more valuable in this scenario, and that value accrues to the worst actors, the owners and operators who are taking advantage of the neighbors, and in many cases, their patrons who are being assaulted. So I would just like us to think about those two things, but I'll be supporting this moratorium when it comes up for a vote.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sycamore, and then we're going to go back to community members. So if any other commissioners have thoughts, please raise your hand and we'll circle back to commissioners.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Commissioner Handerhan stole everything I was going to actually ask and say. So I I second everything that Commissioner has just said. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping that short and sweet. Okay, so first we have Mr. Jim Moore. Cedric, if you can take him off of mute. Great.
So can you hear me?
Yes, and you are, the volume is great. Thank you.
Awesome. So I am one in support of this moratorium. Again, I live on T Street. My wife and I both, she's here observing you as well. We both support this moratorium. I also support expanding it. I mean, we have 23 liquor licenses just on 9th Street, or this one little block of 9th Street. I didn't know that. I've been here 25 years. I would have been against this 25 years ago. I mean, that's crazy. Now, and the idea, I understand. I think it was Commissioner Hallahan who said, and is it Handrahan? Handrahan. So anyway, he's who said that it'll make the worst actors to make them more valuable. That's true. However, it will also price it at a point where only certain people can come in. So I'm for expanding the area around Shaw that doesn't get liquor licenses, and make those people have to buy some of these liquor licenses and move them. I have no idea. I'm with Leola. I want to know how we got here. I want to know, and I realize you guys can only vote in support of this. So I'd like to know what we can do, what I can do with Admiral to go down and let them know that this is serious. I mean, that this community is serious. So I'd appreciate if you could, help us out with that as well. But generally speaking, we are in support. My wife and I are both in support of you supporting extending this moratorium or implementing this moratorium for 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Holohan will also drop into the chat kind of information on how to get involved with the ABR committee, where they pass along recommendations to the commission on liquor licenses to protest. We also look at settlement agreements. So he can drop that into the chat to share out for more community members to get involved. Cedric, if you can take Thomas Cohen off of mute. You can go ahead and take.
Some of you, I'm sure, remember the restaurant Al Crostino, and it was a very nice and kind of upscale Italian place. But she was forced to leave because she couldn't get customers in there. People did not want to walk along those loiterers and drunken revelers on 9th Street. So her business collapsed. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Cedric, if you can go ahead and take Elizabeth Baker off of mute.
Hi, good evening. I just want to, I'm a resident of Westminster. I've got 2 young daughters. My husband and I bought our house at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's just gotten worse since we've been there. I think what strikes me is that I've had too many close calls. So, you know, the site of the shooting at 11th and T, I walked by with my 1-month-old daughter just, you know, a few minutes before that happened. My sister-in-law left our house one night at 11 p.m., 11:15. I heard a scream and witnessed the tail end of a mugging outside of our house. I was walking up 7th Street with my daughter, who's now 4 months old, and came across 2 men threatening to shoot each other. There's just too much of it. And it's what's happening is our neighbors are leaving. It's happening. And the neighborhood feels like it's falling apart. And it's really quite a sad experience for me. It's a place that I have come to love within just a few years. And I just wanted to share some of that personal experience and hope that you'll support the moratorium.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, let's go ahead and take Frank off of mute. Frank, you have 2 minutes. Well, we'll start it when you're on. Okay.
Yes, thank you. And I would like just to make a quick comment to correct some of the information. I think you guys have been sort of apprised through the comments pertaining to the success of the Adams-Morgan moratorium. The Adams-Morgan moratorium has been in effect for 23 years. And if you ask any of the citizen associations or any resident that lives within 2 or 3 blocks of 18th Street, they will call the moratorium a success. However, just a little sideswipe here, the ANC and the BID wanted to increase taverns from the 15 existing to 25. That is anathema to sound peaceful coexistence with the neighborhood. And guess what? ABCA stood up for the first time since I've seen them in 4.5 years and took the side of the residents and kept the cap at 15 taverns. So the citizens won in this case, and the moratorium has been a success for 23 years, contrary to the efforts because of some empty storefronts the BID wanted to fill, and the ANC said, we're having a neighborhood that's falling apart. Well, that's not the case. I'm clarifying the record here tonight for the community on that issue. My second issue is I'm going to be asking Commissioner Jones to review a piece of the zoning code. It's called the plan. The plan that is under the zoning code called. Let's see. I'm going to have another 30 seconds here, and it is called the Uptown Mid-City area aspect of the zoning code. Sorry, I lost my page, and I am one more 30 seconds here. let's see. So it's a comprehensive plan. There's a specific section called policy 2013.4, and it explicitly details how over concentration of nightclubs, entertainment use as entertainment uses, restaurants, over concentration and nightclub over concentration should be minimized when enacting codes. So that means the regulatory body should, in fact, be taking this into consideration. And I'd like a review by the ABR committee, and that's what I'm asking for tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Moving on to Abe. Barry Shim. Yep. Okay, Abe, you can go ahead and take yourself off of mute.
Sure. Thank you, Chairperson Harris. My wife and I live on Westminster, also with 2 children under 2 years old. And I could share so much of what I'm sure so many other people here are acutely aware of. It's astonishing to me that we've gotten to this point. I mean, I can talk about the fact that my wife and I have been woken up several times by police to request camera footage because crimes have occurred right in front of our homes, to say nothing of the countless times we've been woken up by other things happening maybe half a block away, and so our camera footage wouldn't be useful. I can, talk about the time our house was broken into. I can talk about the fact that multiple neighbors on our block have bullet holes in their car. Another neighbor had a bullet go into the brick in front of their house. Like this is not normal, and we're acting as though this is normal, and that's absolutely insane. And you all know this. Everybody on this call knows this. The reason that I even felt the need to come off mute here is because if I don't do that, nobody else knows I'm here. We're not meeting in person because we were told that we didn't need a separate meeting for this because we would have the option to meet in person for this ANC meeting. And then we were told it's only on Zoom. And I'm looking here and I don't even know how many of my neighbors are on this meeting because there's not even a list of the number of participants for the vast majority of people here. We are trying to bind together as a community to take on this problem, and we are being denied the ability to organize because people don't want to address this because they don't know how to take it on. And so this is like the first small step that we can take. It isn't everything, but it is such an obviously needed measure. And I can't even believe that we wouldn't support this. And I hope that the commission will feel the same way.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to correct you. So there was something, I believe Councilmember Nadeau falsely promoted the meeting as hybrid. So this meeting was always planned as virtual. We do get a higher attendance during virtual meetings. We will be having a hybrid meeting in November. We were not trying to cut off anyone's purpose of organizing. This initiative was led by WNA, and I believe that it has been raised in our ABR committee several times. I know that all of the commissioners are aware about the moratorium. And just as another note, we are not the deciding bodies. We are simply either supporting the recommendation for a moratorium to the ABCA board who does decide this, or we do not support it. And that is up to kind of the individual commissioners and how they vote this evening. I apologize if there was a moment where you couldn't get a hold of different commissioners to raise your thoughts. We also do not publish attendees because that is a privacy concern. So it is not, yes, people can see each other when they're in person, but that is their choice to attend in person. But we do not share the attendee list for privacy concerns. So I apologize if you are offended by that, but that is something that we have always done. Moving on to Amanda Tolles. We cannot hear you, but
hi, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Good evening, and thanks for taking the time. I'm a longtime resident of Shaw, and my partner and I live on 9.5 Street. I am speaking on behalf of residents of 9.5 Street, all of whom are immediately adjacent to this proposed moratorium zone. And since early 2021, we have endured intolerable noise and light pollution from existing clubs and bars, resulting in seriously detrimental impacts to our health and quality of life, including days and weeks-long stretches of disrupted focus, lack of sleep. I know many of you were on the APCA hearing this morning. I just wanted to reemphasize one point I made earlier, which is that it has been very clear for some time that DC government agencies, including MPD and APCA, don't have the capacity to safely and responsibly operate a nightlife area as large and as dense as this is. We on 9.5 Street are well practiced in contacting APCA to enforce existing regulations and hard-won settlement agreements. However, this often has little to no effect. And more recently, our calls to APCA have been deprioritized or even ignored by investigators due to their citation is that they have a severe lack of resources needed to substantiate violations. So if city agencies can't handle the enforcement of existing bars and clubs and the associated criminal activity perpetrated by bar patrons, we need to take immediate action to allow APCA and other city agencies to attempt to regain order before this problem gets more out of control. I ask that you please support this proposed moratorium on behalf of all the neighbors of this zone. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did hear your testimony today, and, you know, thank you for taking the time to kind of voice the matters. You know, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry to all the neighbors of what you all are going through. It's certainly not easy. And yeah. Okay. Are there any commissioner comments?
Well, I guess that's now time to make my comment. I guess I'll take over back for the ABR committee. First,
then I will, and sorry, Commissioner Holly, and I'll circle back to Commissioner Fields, and then I do have some thoughts as well. But sorry, go ahead. Unless you would like to go last.
Sure, Commissioner Fields, feel free.
Okay, Commissioner Fields.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to the WNA or Commissioner Hollihan and ask why you guys chose 3 years specifically, and what you're hoping to do with that number over that time.
Paul, want to take that?
Sure. Our approach from the beginning has been to be as small and as compact as possible. I think that one of the big dangers that moratoria have wrought in the past, in particular the New York City medallion example, is when moratoria go on forever, that's when you have the escalation of property values in the form of licenses. What we want to do is to provide a reasonable and short enough period of time for our elected officials to do what has to be done to arrest the violence and the lawlessness that we are now experiencing as a result of these public policies that have led us to have such an overconcentration, saturation of bars and taverns in such a small area of a historic knighthood. So by that measure, I want to admit that the 3 years is slightly arbitrary. It's shorter than 10, it's shorter than 5, but it's not 20. And we really feel like we want to be responsible in wielding this tool in a way that it can be extended if it's working. But if for any reason it's not forever. I hope that's helpful.
Commissioner Fields, do you have anything else? Okay. I will go in my 2 minutes, and then I will let Commissioner Hollihan close this out, unless there are any other comments. But like Commissioner Handerhan and Commissioner Sycamore, I was very skeptical of this. I think I've noted my skepticism across several ABR meetings. And I still am skeptical because I think ultimately the problem does fall under, several other agencies that are not being held accountable to what they need to do with MPD, with DPW, with DDOT, with all of these agencies that are just not responding. I was at the entire hearing today and I saw all of the videos, and I was completely flabbergasted that MPD hasn't responded better, or DDOT hasn't responded better to any of the sidewalk public space issues. I was completely shocked that DPW hasn't done anything with parking. However, I will be voting in favor of the moratorium because I do think it sends a signal that we are paying attention to this area. I would like to add, though, that I think we need to add in language to the resolution for support to push ABCA to really work with the community and the ANC to strengthen our settlement agreements, because I am very sick and tired of seeing us at odds. It's the ANC and the community at odds with the establishment, when I think all of us here who live on U Street and lived here for a very long time do not want economic decline, want the businesses to thrive, and it creates this false stereotype and narrative that we're here to shut businesses down. So I would really like that language added, because that is ABCA's job and that is their prime responsibility to approve these licenses. So I will be voting in favor, although still skeptical. So thank you.
If anyone else has anything to say. Okay, first and foremost, Commissioner Harris, thank you for those comments. I appreciate that. For all the folks from WNA, thank you for your comments. So the other commissioners, thank you. Paul, thanks for leading this charge along with Frank and several others. Obviously I represent this street. I walk up and down it all the time. I share in the concerns of the folks from WNA. I would be an incredibly poor representative of this area if I did not strongly support this initiative. I have gotten phone calls, emails since I started, since before I took over as ANC 1B02. I have gotten several emails and calls a week just about this. There has never been one single person reach out to me and say they did not support the moratorium. Not one. I have reached out to liquor license attorneys. I've reached out to businesses. There was 52 separate letters that were sent to business owners on 9th Street, just asking for input. We told people that this was going to happen. I've yet to hear one person reach out to me and say that this is a bad idea. Granted, there are concerns, as Commissioner Hanrahan and Commissioner Harris have raised, but this is a community full of people who are living in fear. This is, you go to your home, it's supposed to be your castle, you're supposed to feel secure there. And the only thing that people can do who live in this community is ask their ANC to tell ABCA that they support this. That's literally the only lever they have. And if there's one thing I have learned in my time as chair of the ABR committee, is that ABCA does not really care about our concerns. That sounds like a pretty weighty thing to throw at them. But every single time we have a conversation with them, we have a real concern about security, trash, noise, ABCA will do everything in their power to support the business. And I believe fully that a moratorium can help the situation here. It won't solve the problem. But as we've seen already in the last 2-3 months, if you think there are enough licenses that exist on this block of 9th Street, 2 more have just been requested. I mean, how many liquor licenses can you request in this one little stretch? And granted, like I've heard many times, well, people moved there, they have to expect this. Yes, they moved to a place that had liquor licenses, but they also had restaurants. We've seen several restaurants close since the pandemic. They have been replaced with taverns, with bars, places that don't serve food. It has changed the dynamic and the feel of this street. It does not feel safe to walk up and down the street. I'm a 6'1", 215-pound white guy. I should not feel afraid of walking my community. I never used to until I was mugged by a 15-year-old who put a gun in my face 2 blocks away from that location. Given what I've heard from everyone so far, I do not feel that this is in danger of losing, and I appreciate that. But I would just implore, if there is, a thought that you may have not to stand with these people, let them speak for themselves. The council member for this district supports this measure. I support this measure. The vast majority of people who live in this neighborhood support this measure. Again, I have not met one single person who opposes it. Apparently, the owner of DC 9 does not like this. That's the only folk, and Alex Padro, who does not live in Ward 1. That's it. So I would implore you to support this resolution. I will happily accept the chair's amendment to the resolution. And then Commissioner Lakatos, if you'd like to put up the resolution to the screen.
Just took the words out of my mouth. You give me one moment. Lower my hand. So some context, I drafted this resolution in consultation with Commissioner Holohan ahead of this meeting. Basically, all this resolution states the context of what the moratorium petition is, the basics of what is enclosed within the WNA's petition, what is requesting, the situation around 9th Street, and then the resolved that ANC 1B supports the moratorium, that ANC 1B authorizes Commissioner Holohan to represent it on this matter before the board. And then this one that I added just now, this be it further resolved, which I tried to sort of incorporate language that Chair Harris was requesting around resources for enforcement and settlement agreements. I kind of just workshop this in the last 3 minutes. So if we want to make any changes.
I think it's more so to work with the ANC and the community to strengthen the settlement agreements, because I mean, I think it kind of gets at that, but I think adding that in would be helpful. Because it seems like it's mostly on us to figure out and like working with our attorney, but like, you know, and it just so happened that like we have the funds to like have an attorney to like help us with this. But you know, I think I've just been frequently upset at seeing kind of some of the press and some of the things, whether it's on Twitter or saying how ANCs want to shut down businesses and it's because of these settlement agreements, when that's not the case. And I think that is a tool that we have, especially with these businesses that even in the moratorium zone will come up for renewal. That is the tool that we have to help, you know, whatever resolve issues that we're seeing. And then it is a legally binding agreement that ABCA uses with their kind of investigators and with any hearings that they have.
And to Paul's question in the chat, and I try to make that change below. I don't think we need to change it because we're just noting that the WNA is asking the ABCA board, the ABC board, to approve it. So we're just noting that. And then here we say that the ANC supports the petition. So
the one thing that we do need to make, because we don't, it's not clear if we support it. That's something that we need to vote on. And the other thing that needs to be added, which might be on the second page, is the certification of how many people voted in favor of the resolution. So I'm seeing it right there. Okay. So what we might want to do is we might want to move that line of the ANC supports. We might want to move that before the be it further resolved that the ANC authorizes Commissioner Sean Holohan, would also put in his SMD, and then or like any other commissioner who represents kind of the area, who represents kind of that SMD or matters, which we can take that language from other letters that we've written, but I would just, move that line of the supports because we do still need to vote on that. So even though I think most of us have signified, but we need to still vote on that. So it's not.
Madam Chair, I believe the intent of Commissioner Lakatos, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Lakatos, is that the motion would be to pass the resolution on the whole, which would do both of, which would do that simultaneously, which would.
Yes, and I'm not arguing against that. I'm arguing right now of the move that line where it says, therefore be it resolved that ANC 1B supports the North Shaw and 9th Street neighborhood moratorium zone as petitioned. Move that above the be it further resolved with the last one with Commissioner Sean Holohan, because typically we have what we are supporting in a resolution, whether that's a letter or a vote, we have that before the certification.
Okay, so
Copy and paste that and move that under. So then it is clear of, because they might say, where is this? What are you supporting? What is this resolution?
does that work?
Yes.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, last thing, I don't see any questions, but last thing is, so in that line of that last one, sorry, I know I'm drilling into this. But just add in as petitioned by Westminster Neighborhood Association. Thank you. That's it. Commissioner Kinsick.
Real quick, I just know Chairwoman Gal had asked a question and Cedric wrote back. I just figured before we go on a vote, we would want to hear from her as well.
Okay. Santiago or Commissioner Lakatos, if you can take this off of the screen. Ms. Karen Gall, Cedric, if you can take Karen Gall off of mute, you have 2 minutes. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you. Commissioner Kinsick, are you in touch with?
No, I was just reading it through the Q&A, Cedric wrote, but I'm not. No, none.
Okay. Okay. Let's give it 2 more seconds, and then Cedric, if you can go ahead and take. Oh, wait. Am I seeing hands?
I saw Karen say go back up.
Karen, you can take it. You can take yourself off of mute, and if you want to add any comments before we put this for a vote. Okay, I'm assuming no, but if you want to add anything, you can into the chat. I just noted that I saw that you raised your hand and unraised it. Okay. Cedric, if you can go ahead and take Ms. Karen Gall off of this, and then we will move forward. Frank, I do see your hand up, but we already, it was 1 comment per community member, 2 minutes.
Real quick, Karen did write the comments for community hygiene.
I'm not sure what that addresses, but I think it might be encompassed with maybe something of noting when we talk about kind of enforcement and other coordination with community services. And that is encompassed in settlement agreements when it's like with trash related and rats. And so I think we've kind of addressed it. And we can absolutely address specifics in the ABR meeting. Okay, so do we have a motion? Commissioner Jones.
I move that the commission adopts the resolution in support of the WNA's proposed moratorium as resolution as presented by Commissioner Lakatos.
Do we have a second? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you for all of the community members joining us tonight and providing your comments and feedback. It does not go unnoticed. We very much appreciate it. And thank you so much, Paul, for hopping on and answering kind of our questions that we had. If you can if you feel comfortable, drop your information into the chat if any other folks have questions for you. And Commissioner Holohan has already dropped his information for anyone who does want to get involved with the ABR committee. That is a point where we look at liquor licenses, where we talk about issues like moratorium zones, and other matters just related to kind of establishments and how it relates to zoning as well. But thank you all for joining, and Commissioner Holohan, if there's any other updates, we can move forward.
Let's really know. Thank you all very much.
Okay. Moving on. Thank you, Commissioner Fields. I know we went to your committee and then we left it and now we're back. So Commissioner Fields, if you can provide public safety and community engagement updates.
Yeah, MPD really gave a good overview of what's been going on in this area. As far as crimes go, the only thing that I would add is, as we all know, there's been an increase in assaults with deadly or dangerous weapons. There have been 16 stolen autos, but a lot of them have been recovered. As Commander Baudelaire mentioned, there has also been a 38% increase in violent crime citywide, and there's more than homicides have gone up by 36. There have been 36 more homicides than this time last year. So as we all know, crime is still occurring. Just a couple of hot spots or areas where people were killed, unfortunately, over the past month. There was a fatal stabbing at McDonald's located on 14th and U. There was a fatal shooting outside of the Columbia Heights metro station, and then 3 men were shot on 18th Street and Columbia Road. And in addition to that, with our updates from the Howard community, there was not a fatal stabbing, but a stabbing outside of the School of Dentistry, which I wasn't aware of. So those are a few areas where crime has occurred over there past month. Definitely going to be very quick. I know we've been on for a long time, so I'll move on into sponsorship requests. The first one we have is from the DC Funk Festival. A short or brief description is that the musicianship celebrates annually on the U Street corridor. It's an event founded by music lovers for music lovers, and they will feature genres such as go-go, pop, soul, and hip, and they've requested $1,500 from us. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to approve their sponsorship request for $1,500, or ask if there's any questions before we move into that.
Well, is that a motion, or do we want to do you want to answer any questions first?
We can answer any questions first.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Did they reschedule the Funk Parade?
I don't think they've rescheduled yet.
Okay. Commissioner Lakatos, are there any? So I think we have traditionally sponsored the Funk Parade in the past, so this isn't, it's the same thing, right? It's not a different, it's the same thing. Okay. We have sponsored it. So this isn't, I just want to make sure that we're in compliance because they haven't set a date yet. Is it still possible for us to vote to sponsor it, I guess, when they do vote on a date? Like, is there any compliance issues with this, Commissioner Lakatos?
No, not their application's complete. It's just a matter of when they have that date, then we just need to make sure that their application is modified to meet it. We're voting to approve a sponsorship for their specific event. So in the same way, if they had a weather delay, they would have to change it. But I also looked over the application and they have all the right information there.
Cool. Okay, great. Commissioner Sycamore.
Just quickly, out of curiosity, what does the sponsorship go towards? I mean, I know what they've done, but anything specifically that it goes towards, or is it just general, like maintenance and funding of police department or security, or do we have that information?
Give me 1 second and I can pull their application up and get you that.
And I can just add while you're looking that up that in previous years, it's been like just for shirts and getting out the word and flyers. There was a list. I know last year we voted on this as well. But it's basically just for the operation of the parade itself.
Are there any other Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, this is minor, but I think important in the version of the application that appears in our agenda package. Sorry, let me timer myself. In the version of the package application that appears in our agenda package online, answering question 15, statement of benefit, what it'll do for the community. One of the items reads 2 VIP tickets for all Funk Festival events. I would like to make it clear that that is not something that the ANC should accept. So when we vote to accept this, I'll be asking that that be struck from the benefits that we're asking for.
That sounds agreeable.
I'm sorry, what was that again? I missed that.
One of the I think the applicant misunderstood what the purpose of the question was. There's a statement of benefit and how it'll benefit the community, excuse me. And I believe they misinterpreted that. And we're offering 2 VIP tickets for Funk Festival events, which is not something that we can accept.
Yeah, I missed the VIP part. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, are there any other questions? And Commissioner Fields, I know you were pulling that up for any other specifics that may have been missed in terms of the sponsorship.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Kinzick hit it on the head, just that they'll be using it for t-shirts, logo placement, and stuff like that for the festival.
Flyers.
This is a good event for any commissioners when it is rescheduled to attend. It just like helps increase the awareness of ANC 1B. I mean, I think every commission kind of struggles with that. So I think if we can, I know prior committee chairs have had like different sign up forms for commissioners to kind of help meet neighbors, but this is a pretty large event. So when it does happen, I think we should make our efforts to try to meet more community members when the event happens. Okay, so is there a motion to approve this sponsorship?
I move to approve the DC Funk Parade sponsorship.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, the next sponsorship application that is up for a vote is Art All Night U Street. They'll be using Harrison Recreation Center and the Reeves Center for virtual art installations and other activities that will happen in addition to business specials on the night of September 23rd, and they've requested $3,000. So any discussion or questions about that?
I think I do have a question on, so they're using the 3K for kind of direct installations in kind of Harrison and Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
And then are those staying up? I mean, it'd be great if it was staying up permanently in Harrison. How long are they staying up, just for the length of the event?
I'm not sure, but Lindsay is on the call, who is with them. I'm not sure if Lindsay wants to clarify that. She has her hand raised.
Okay. Cedric, if you can take Lindsay off of mute.
Hello.
Hi, Lindsay.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, to answer your question, the installations will be just for the night of the event. They're not permanent installations.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any other questions? Question from Commissioner Jones, and then we do have a question from, I believe that is Mr. Patrick Nelson, unless there's another T Nelson, but
I defer to the community question first, if that's all right, Madam Chair.
sure. Cedric, if you can take P Nelson off of mute.
I just have a quick question. Is this the same art all night that is done in Shaw, or is this a new thing that District Bridges is creating?
I believe it's the
Same, I believe.
same event. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Commissioner Fields. You're better at
I
answering.
believe it's the same. But Lindsay, can you confirm? You wanna get Bronson?
Cedric, if you can take Lindsay off of mute and then keep her up until we finish voting.
Yes, so Art All Night is a citywide event that happens in multiple corridors throughout the city. So Shaw Main Street has their own programming, as well as the U Street Main Street will have their own programming. So you'll see it take place in various corridors throughout the city, but yes, U Street and Shaw Main Street has individual programming for Art All Night.
And I believe our 3,000 is going towards a projected 36,000 for the event. So that there's just numbers there. And on the last vote, our 1,500 would be going towards 150,000 for the total cost of their event. But yes, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. I just have a question actually for Commissioner Lakatos. How much have we spent so far this year on sponsorships?
You're gonna have to give me a second to look at the checkbook. And then
Sounds good.
Give me a second.
I don't believe though we've hit the budget. I mean, we might need to vote next meeting to raise it, but I don't believe we are even close to it based on my quick back of the napkin math.
Thank you. That's exactly the information I wanted to have.
We spent $2,000 so far this fiscal year on sponsorships.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Is it this fiscal year or the one that we're?
This fiscal year ends on October 1st.
Okay, so okay.
We can spend. Yeah, so we have. If we approve this sponsorship, and then we can spend it as a part of this year's budget.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for clarifying the fiscal year because I work in the private sector and do not operate on this schedule. Okay. Are there any other questions? All right, do we have a motion, Commissioner Fields?
I move that we approve the Art All Night sponsorship for ANC 1B.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Yeah, and if we, approve all the requests for tonight, we'll be spending $5,500. The last request we have is from the Columbia Heights Movie Night request. They're also receiving funding from ANC 1A and I believe maybe possibly ANC 1E. But they are having a series of Friday night family night and family friendly movies at Harriet Tubman Elementary School. It'll be on 3 different dates. The first is September 22nd, the second is October 7th, and the third is on October 20th. And they're requesting $1,000. Are there any questions?
Is it 1,000 or is it 1,500? Did I read that agenda item wrong?
It's 1,000 on the agenda, but let me double check what I said.
You know what? It is 1,000. I think I was looking at the funk parade. Apologies. But if you want to double check that.
Yes, I'll double check now.
I will say, so I think this is a separate event, but it did stem from a 1A commissioner. And I think it's going to be a great kind of event. It also could provide ANC 1B with learnings on how we could do one of these, maybe in Harrison. So I'm really excited about it. I think, it's right near our own commission. So I will definitely be supporting this sponsorship.
And you were right, their application does say 1,500. So if we could amend that. Yeah.
We can say it in the motion.
Okay. I move to.
One second, Commissioner Lakatos, sorry.
I also think this is a great idea. I just haven't seen the application because it's not in the agenda packet. Commissioner Fields, would you be able to share the like the on your screen to see it? I want to make sure that that application has all the things we need in it. It'll take me like 30 seconds.
And this one is a little bit different just because this is the first one that I've taken on through the Google link. So it kind of reads on a spreadsheet, but I can share my screen. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, sorry, it's kind of like that, but there's a name of the project. We'll just expand that a little bit from ANC 1A, 11th Street. That's their website. I guess they would need to submit a tax ID. But that's their contact information. They're projecting 3,500 for all 3 nights. They're requesting 1,500 from us. They have funding from 1A and 1E. And there's just a brief description of their event there. It's kind of harder to read, so I will work that out after we get off the call tonight.
Is there anything missing from this, Commissioner Lakatos?
My only concern is that I'm not sure we can sponsor an event hosted by another government agency.
We can,
Because not co-sponsor, because 1A is hosting it, as far as my understanding of the application is. I would be okay if we wanted to phrase the motion where we approve the sponsorship pending.
Yeah.
Sort
Yeah,
of,
no, that's a good point. Yeah, we can't sponsor that, and yeah, we can go back to that. We can say pending and then we can go back. I think 1A is, yeah, well, that's a fair point. So let's go ahead. So Commissioner Fields, if you can just add in your motion and say, we will support / approve this sponsorship pending who the host is. What is
approval from the OANC.
Approval from the OANC. Okay.
Also, could the elementary school be considered a host, or?
I think it actually has to be like
the organizer of the event.
the actual organizer of the event. But I wonder how 1E, and I can talk to the chair over there, is doing it. But Commissioner Kinsick.
I was going to say what you just said, just like how is 1E doing it, and
Well, they might not know because they're a new commission. So, but not to knock on them, but they are new. So, yeah, we can still like move forward, but we'll just say pending OANC approval.
And if we get approval, I'm more than happy to just the rules.
So I move to first amend the request reflected in the agenda to 1,500 from ANC 1A pending government approval to sponsor their Columbia Heights movie night event.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
And the last thing we have on the agenda is just a resolution to request resident-only parking at 5 blocks. It's in the agenda, but do I need to put it up on my screen?
I would recommend so. I don't know if commissioners have had a chance to review it.
Okay. So this is the draft resolution. I can read it. So whereas there is a major traffic generator within the boundaries of ANC 1B, let me add that. Okay. At 1400V to 1500V Street, 2015th Street to 2140 15th Street on the east side, 2100 14th Street and 2014th Street due to a place of worship, school, and recreational facility nearby, which attracts 500 or more people. Whereas on-street parking is required for more than 2 hours during the day when RPP restrictions are in place. Whereas the U Street corridor is an active attraction for residents outside the district on weekends and weeknights for entertainment purposes. Whereas ANC 1B residents in the surrounding area are constantly subject to disturbances such as noise, littering, and limited parking. Therefore, be it resolved by the Advisory Neighborhood Commission 1B of the District of Columbia, support rezoning for residential parking at the aforementioned blocks. I know there have been some questions about why so many blocks were included, but I did see that on the application where you have to submit the request. Commissioner Lakatos.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in to sort of add a little bit more context, which is just that Commissioner Fields is right. The application is formatted and it makes you put at least 5 blocks. DDOT is only going to approve the blocks where the regulations allow them to. And realistically, probably only 2 of these blocks are actually eligible. It's a rule about how many sides of the street can have resident-only parking or not. But some of them, when there's metered commercial parking, it's variable. But at the end of the day, this resolution is just sort of, fulfilling that process. And then if they won't approve it, then based on the regulations, then they won't do it. So I think because some of the blocks on 14th Street have meter parking and they're not going to change that to ROP.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm in support of the resolution. I just want to add that context because the process is confusing and it's not Commissioner Fields' fault that it's confusing. It's DDOT's fault.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Kinzig.
Just want to thank you, Commissioner Fields. You've done great work with this. You've had a lot of constituents. I've had a lot of constituents. You worked with me on this. It's appreciated, and I'm definitely going to be in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any community questions by chance?
Seeing a hand raised from Patrick. Cedric, can you take Patrick off of mute?
Actually, I had my hand up to talk about the previous issue, so I don't
How
have
to feel like?
a context for this, but just to let you know that I just talked to the treasurer of 1A.
James, Commissioner Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That 1B can sponsor that event because each ANC is just paying their portion to the bill. They're not, so it's not going to get written to ANC 1A. It's going to be written to the vendor that's going to do the actual movie. So.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. We'll still probably just ask OANC because we just want to make sure that we're good to go. But thank you. Thank you for asking Commissioner Turner as well.
Treasurer Turner.
Treasurer Turner, excuse me. Former chair of 1B. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, so at this time, I was just gonna move that we approve the resolution to request resident-only block parking at the blocks in our resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, that's about it for the public safety and community engagement meeting. I did want to remind everyone that we do have updates from MPD at each of our meetings. So if you can't catch the CAC meeting or if you can't catch them here, that will be another time that will be allotted for you to ask them questions and get a little bit more understanding of what it is that they're doing to prevent crime in our area. And they are doing a lot of work. We've also had violence interrupters and many other people come to discuss that. And so we're hoping to have more guests at our next meeting, which will be held on Tuesday, October 10th via Zoom at 7 p.m. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fields, and thank you for raising all of these sponsorships. I think it's really important. Okay, zoning, preservation, and development, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is text in the agenda, but there are no items that we need to vote on. I had thought of recapping what we did at the previous meeting, but given that we're short on time, with the chair's permission, I'd like to not do that.
I think that is.
Our next meeting of the Zoning Preservation Development Committee is tentatively scheduled for Monday, October 16th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. There is a possibility that that date will change. If so, it will be advertised on the ANC 1B website and put out through the ANC 1B mailing list. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Jones. Economic Development, Commissioner Handerhan.
Thanks so much. I'm going to take a
For
lead
adding
from
those updates too.
I'm going to take my lead from Commissioner Jones and just put a few things in the chat to speed up my update. I want to make sure folks knew that there is a new hearing for 1617 U Street. We've talked about this site a lot in this meeting in the past, but there's a zoning committee hearing that has been rescheduled for November 20th. It's case number 2302. I just dropped in the link if anyone would like to testify there. We're going to talk about this much more at the November meeting, which will be a few weeks before the hearing. If you're interested in 1617U items, which is an upzoning of the firehouse at the end of the U Street corridor, please come to our October Economic Development Committee meeting where we will feature a discussion on that, and I'll make sure that information gets out there. That will be on the third Thursday of October. There's one item that is up for a vote tonight. I think this can be pretty quick. I don't think it'll be controversial. The committee would like the ANC 1B to vote on a letter that goes to DEMPED that discusses a number of things that were important to the community, but weren't really part of the RFP for that site. So just as a reminder, DEMPED selected a development team to redevelop the Reef Center site. There's I've heard, almost exclusive just excitement for what's going to be there. But the devil's in the details, as everyone knows. And so this letter would flag 8 things that, again, I'm going to drop in the chat, that we heard from the community over the course of a couple years of community engagement, but we didn't feel like was necessarily in the selected plan or accounted for in the RFP. So this letter would be a way to get our support on the record. I will share the letter, my screen. Huge thanks. I was going to ask a committee member to come and kind of speak to it, but it's so late. So as you note here, there are 8 areas: maximizing affordable housing on U Street, addressing parking loss and some of the alley congestion issues on the between V Street and W Street, supporting unhoused residents and users of the Reef Center, hiring opportunities for local residents, the need for a construction mitigation plan. There have been some concerns about something that was in the proposal. This is the only one that really touches that explicitly around the name of Dave Chappelle for the comedy club. It encourages DEMPED to look at local bid requirements, and then it seeks a larger proportion or commitment from DEMPED to have parking available to the public, not just for tenants of the site. There's a little bit more under each, but really these are like vision statements and value statements more than anything too in the weeds. This is in the agenda packet as well. And the one thing I'll say is that a DEMPED rep was there when we were having this conversation, and I asked the question, would any of these be not viable or received poorly? And they said no, this is all stuff that they're familiar with, and having us on the record would be a welcome. This would be a welcome letter. They didn't commit to these things. That was not this individual's role to do that, but just so you know, this would be a friendly kind of aggregation of community input. And I'm happy to stop there and take any questions.
Vice Chair, I want to tell you, I like this a lot. I like that you're also mentioning in regards to the alleyways between V and W. And as I've suggested, I'm going to keep saying it anytime I can, they really should consider putting an alleyway behind the Reef Center from V to U and have any turn in of traffic going inward. And then they can easily take a right out of U, so it won't go against DDOT's law of going across lane. That's just something I think we really should push between parking. This way the congestion's not sitting there, and also deliveries, which they will have food deliveries, and it's going to be a lot on V Street. And we already have that with the child care center there. Parents tend to park 3 rows out. So it'll be a nightmare, to be frank. Thank you.
The committee agrees with you, Commissioner Kenzik. And thank you. I think this is in there because you brought it up, so thank you.
Are there any other questions? Comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, I would like to motion that ANC 1B supports the recommendation of the Economic Development Committee to send this draft letter to DEMPED regarding the Reeve Center development priorities in the next phase.
We have a second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate the conversation, and I put the information for our next meeting, which is not going to feature 1617, but will feature a myriad of other exciting topics a week from today, and my email if you have any questions.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to administrative. This is not in the agenda because this has kind of just come up. But so commissioners, you all are aware that we do have a vacancy in 1B06 community members. We have a vacancy in one of our SMDs, that is 1B06. That's kind of where Malcolm X Meridian Hill Park is. It was posted in the registrar, and then we did have 3 candidates submit petition papers. They got all of the signatures that they needed. The challenge period for those signatures has also passed. And so what that means is that ANC 1B will be either doing it at a regular scheduled meeting or calling a special meeting, which I recommend the latter, to essentially, and someone correct me if I'm phrasing this wrong because this is my first time, but essentially hosting the election. So just to basic things is there needs to be a quorum of commissioners on a Zoom meeting where the election will take place, not on the Zoom meeting. The election will take place from BOE and OANC at a set location for the residents of 1B06 to vote. And commissioners will need to be online, or a quorum of commissioners will need to be online. There will also potentially be 2 commissioners that need to be present at the voting site. This will take place over the course of about 4 hours. Then, and you are not expected, if you are online, you are not expected to be on camera. We can go off of camera. You can, take recess. So I will describe all of this via email. This is also to let the public know that, we have 3 people running for this, which is great. I am very excited to see this participation and to get this vacancy filled. We will also be announcing we will announce 7 days prior to when the election is. I apologize. I'm trying to make sure that I am sticking to the technicalities of this. But we will be, when the special election and when our meeting that we convene, we will announce that 7 days in advance. This is to just give the community notice. We will likely vote on when the special meeting will need to take place in our October meeting, which is kind of just a couple weeks away. That's why we're not voting on it tonight, because I kind of am springing it on you all, but I just wanted to make you all aware that this is coming up. We will have this. I will be in touch with OANC CC'd and the executive board with the candidates to figure out if there's a date that kind of works with them. We'll also make sure that there is a date that kind of works for commissioners, and then helping to secure a place that is available to 1B06 residents, and that they can easily access it to vote as well. I am thinking that this will likely take place over a weekend and not during one of our regular scheduled meetings, because it has to span over a lengthy amount of time, and it's just easier over a weekend, I think, for everyone. So just put on your radar. If there's any questions, please email me. They're probably the same questions that I have that I'm going to flag for OANC anyway. So Commissioner Kinsick.
That was actually well put, because I've been doing a lot of research and talking to Secretary Jones, so that was actually excellently said. I would say that if I don't mind being in person, I'll volunteer that. No issues at all. Whatever date, time, I will be there if needed. Not a problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Kinsick. I was also planning, but if there are other commissioners who would like to do it, by all means. And we can take shifts and whatnot, but again, keep it on your radar that this is coming up, and we'll likely have it around. We do have a deadline on this. I should have mentioned that. We have a deadline. We need to do this before November 5th. We have like a 90-day period, and OANC did request that it's a little before November 5th to give everyone time to post kind of the results. So we will likely have it in mid to mid-late October. Okay, great. Moving on, Executive Council Member, Commissioner and Community Announcements, Office of the Council Member. Nicole, are you still with us? I know you've been waiting. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Okay, I have quite a few things to share with this group, but I know it's getting late, so I will try to go quickly, because recess is almost over. And so I just want to share with folks some of the top priorities. We're going to hit the ground running when we come into session next week, and just a handful of things that we're working on. First, I just want to say we had a lot of conversation about public safety tonight, always top of mind for our office and for the council member. A number of initiatives in Ward 1 will start in the new fiscal year in just a few weeks. That includes safety ambassadors in Adams Morgan, a new violence interrupter for the 14th and V area, more funds for violence interrupter efforts in LaDroit Park, Columbia Heights, and Parkview, targeted substance use outreach along U Street and Lower Georgia Ave and Mount Pleasant, and a pilot program for substance use and behavioral health services in the 600 block of T Street. In the budget, we also created a mechanism to fund a bid-like entity in the U Street area, as well as the Sobering Center is coming to Columbia Heights sometime this year. The council member is also in frequent communication with MPD commanders in the 3rd and 4th districts, and with the chief, encouraging them to allocate officers to the areas with the highest rates of crime. This really sounds like it should be a no-brainer, but right now it's not always how things are working, and how officers are distributed throughout the city. Traffic and safety enforcement. We have 4 bills coming up in October at a joint hearing of our committee, Public Works and Operations, and the Transportation and Environment Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Allen. Parking enforcement, which is under our committee, plays a really big role in traffic safety. The council member's bill focuses on fake tags and expired temp tags, something we get a lot of complaints about, and that is really hard to enforce for a variety of reasons. The bill is going to give DPW and other enforcement agencies authority to immediately tow and impound cars whose owners have blatantly flouted the law by having clearly counterfeit, obscured, or long expired plates. Under current law, even a vehicle with no license plates can't be towed unless it has 2 or more unpaid tickets. So we're gonna try to fix that with this bill. And the bill also empowers DC government to proactively investigate and shut down dealers and distributors of falsified and counterfeit temp tags, and classifying that as an act of forgery. And we also added close to 40 new parking enforcement, booting, and towing positions in the budget for the new year starting October 1st. So we'll really see a pickup in some enforcement there, which is really exciting. Another big thing under our committee is making trash work better. So we have 3 bills coming up. There's going to be a public hearing in October in our committee. All really important pieces of our drive to make trash just work better. So Councilmember Henderson's bill will make buildings with up to 8 condos eligible for city trash pickup. Councilmember Louis George's bill would require public comment before removing public litter containers. So a big thing we talked to our ANC commissioners about a lot. So trying to improve that process and not just, take them away in the dead of night without any public notice. And then we have a bill from DPW itself asking for permission to serve trash violation notices by mail rather than in person. It's just a little technical change. And then we are trying to fund a pilot program for communal trash container. That funding will kick in. We're going to pilot 3 blocks in the district. And this is aimed at blocks where trash pickup is out front and cans get in the way of the sidewalks. They're difficult to get down to the curb, and would place a container on the street where people could bring their trash throughout the week. So we're going to try it out. And then the curbside composting pilot started last month in Ward 8. We anticipate all wards by the end of September, and waste diversion is a really big priority for the council member as chair of the Public Works and Operations Committee. We are working on supporting housing through public land acquisition. We're going to introduce a bill this fall. It's pretty wonky, but really briefly, public ownership of land is really our most powerful tool to make housing more affordable. The district really does have the ability to do something about that. So the bill would allow us to do 2 things: support tenants that are trying to buy their property under TOPA, and give the district the first right to make an offer on any property. So, TOPA is very complicated. It's hard for tenants to organize and buy their property. We really want tenants to be able to stay if they want to stay. And this allows the district to buy the land and the tenants to buy the building. And then for almost every non-TOPA property, the bill would give the district 5 days to make the first offer. We would have to make a fair market value offer. The owners don't have to accept, but we think many may like the quick, easy sale. And it gives them a break on the deed and recordation tax. It's a not insignificant 1% on the first $400,000 and then 1.45% on everything thereafter. And the district can use the land for housing, office rental conversions, parks, whole bunch of things we could use it for. And for housing, if it's on district land, we must maximize density per the rules in the comprehensive plan. And then one more, and then I'm done. We are finalizing legislation to introduce to all but eliminate solitary confinement in the district. Really inhumane, has the opposite effect of what we want, can have a really big impact on recidivism. And if we want less crime, we should eliminate solitary. So we're working on finalizing that and should introduce it shortly. So that was a lot, very fast. I'm happy to answer questions, but also would understand if you'd rather email me questions later because it's getting late.
Commissioner Jones.
Thanks. I will keep it really brief. Thank you for all of those updates. They all sound extremely promising. One devil in the details concern that I have is the phrase blatantly faked license plates on temporary tags. A constituent reached out to me recently, frustrated that a fake Tennessee tag that presumed to be legitimate but was clearly made out of flexible plastic. DPW was asked to ticket that vehicle, and they said that they couldn't discern that was an obvious fake. Frankly, this infuriated my neighbor, and it infuriated me to think that that inspector does not feel empowered to determine what is and is not a blatantly faked tag. So the more that I don't know how to fix that problem in what you're proposing, but the more detailed you can get to say DPW enforcement has the right to determine what is a fake tag and should generally err on the side of, if I think it's faked, it's probably faked.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to share that back with the team. They're working on the details. And so I'll share that back, and yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Real quickly, sorry, Chair. Real quickly, just want to find out, I know that she was originally working on, this is Councilmember Nadeau, something to help with the 7th Street and T area where there's a lot of people that, you know, stay there for the day and, you know, have some addiction issues. And I heard that it didn't go through, but she was working on something else to try to better that area and situation. Do you have any details or anything new on that?
Sure. Yeah. So we did fund in the budget dedicated outreach workers for that area through HIPS. So that's really the big thing that we're working on there. We work with MPD on, you know, on their work in that area, but the big thing is going to be that funding for dedicated outreach workers, because currently there is not like any one person that really has like a regular, you know, point of contact there. So we're really looking forward to that kicking in the new fiscal year.
Commissioner Hinderhand.
I just shot you a note offline about the bid-like entity. Would love to learn a little bit more about that. A lot of interest in the Economic Development Committee. I want to thank you for the substance use supports on 600T. That I think that is not a silver bullet. You need the MPD side as well, but it is like the biggest, like truly missing piece in the supportive services puzzle there. So I know it's not going to change overnight, but I'm super excited. The VIs in LaDroit Park have been so awesome. Like keep them coming. And then really thoughtful comments on TOPA. I won't, maybe we can nerd out some other time, but I do think we need to be creative at this point. Like there's, and so I'm just really glad to see that the solutions for affordability, among other things, are being thought in that way. I think that's really sophisticated, and I just want to acknowledge that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilmember is a very big champion of TOPA. And I will look at your note offline and get back to you. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. Okay, so we already covered Office of the Mayor with Gerard earlier. If there are any community members who have questions for Gerard, his information I think can be reposted in the chat. Now moving on to commissioner announcements. Are there any commissioner announcements?
I do see a hand up again. I'm not sure in the attendees.
We're almost to community announcements, so we can circle back over there. Commissioner Handerhan.
It's time for the LaDroit Park Block Party. It is Saturday, September 23rd. There'll be lots of chalk painting and food and fun times with fun people. So Saturday, the 23rd of September, it's a week from the Saturday, 1 to 5 at the southern part of the park at LaDroit. You can see our new mural. That's 3rd and Elm, if that's an easier way to think about it, and all are welcome.
Great. Can you post that information in the chat so everyone can have it? Okay. Are there any other commissioner announcements? Not seeing any. Okay, community announcements. Cedric, can you go ahead and take Ms. Karen Gall off of mute?
Good evening, everyone. And I apologize that you all couldn't hear me earlier. I had the a hazard sign near my mouth, my audio piece. My question initially was for Nicole with the council member's office. She did bring up an issue in regards to the trash containment in front of the homes and businesses. And specifically, I would like to see that they address the area on 9th Street, because the community hygiene issues that I wanted to mention earlier is a very big issue with the rodent control, the grease that's leaking out of some of the restaurants, and then also the trash the trash cans in front of the businesses really creates a huge issue as you navigate the block. And it's also a eyesore, you know, so if there's something that can be done when they do the community trashing, if they can ensure that the containers are rat-proof containers, and then also something that's aesthetically okay, that lends itself to the great appearance of the neighborhood. In regards to community announcements, my announcement would be that and you guys have mentioned it several times, and I thank you for it, that the 3D CAC meetings are held on the last Thursday of the month. And we have an additional component where we have the 3D CAC meetings on the last Wednesday of the month, which are all Spanish speaking meetings. So we welcome the community. We, of course, want to ensure that we have the diverse opportunities for the communities. And we are also happy to support any efforts that you all need in regards to helping the community with showcasing support for the various initiatives such as the movie nights, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a beautiful evening.
Thank you so much, Karen. Okay. Now on to new business. Is there any new business? Hearing none, are there any additional commissioner comments? I'm not hearing any. So with that, I adjourn this meeting at 9:52 p.m. Thank you so much, all. We will see you back to our regularly scheduled commission meetings on October 5th. Is that right? I don't think it's the 4th. Is it the 4th?
I think that's right.
Okay, let's see. It's the 5th. Okay.
That's
See you all.
something to the calendar. Thank you so much, Chair Harris.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.